thanks for waiting. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I got a little distracted. I was washing dishes and then I was like, oh shit, it's 9 o'clock. Oops, my bad. But anyway, my dishes are done. So, today, what we're gonna talk about, a few different topics here. So first, I'm gonna start off with the Caze situation. I'll just get right into it, short and sweet, and then we are gonna look. I've just noticed some things on her Instagram. I just want to see what you think. I think some things. I don't know. And then we're going to get back on the Madeline Pendleton situation. I just have some thoughts about Indigenous representation I wanted to discuss. Oh, hey, Augusta. Thanks for being here. Sorry, I'm weird. And then, we're going to wrap up after that, too, with, the how to start a startup playlist thing that we've been doing a reaction to. I pulled up another one, so I figured we could check that out also. So yeah, all right, I'm gonna start the fucking intro and then let's get this bitch started. Hi, my name is Lexie, aka Deaf Child. I'm born deaf, hard of hearing. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. My team was one of the top teams between 2020 and 2024 in New Orleans and Louisiana. I began doing business as Deaf Child in 2013, marketing 2011, and sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales. And I have my Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. Okay, so first of all, I get on Instagram, and before I even notice the DMs, I see. Oh wait, am I mute? No, I'm good. Okay, I was worried I forgot to unmute. Okay, sorry. I see that Kaze is looking at my stories, and I was just like, well, isn't this interesting? You know, she was looking, and so I was just like, isn't this interesting? And then I posted another story, and she looked at that one too, hours later also. And so on top of sending me the word hello, and that was sent at 7:35 p.m. Um, and let's see what time she texted me. Okay, so she texted me at 7:40 and 7:44, and I got the call at 7:40 p.m. last night. And then, so at 5 minutes before all of that, she sent me the same fucking shit on Instagram too. So let me show you. So it's 7:35 p.m. It says hello. Through this letter dated October blah blah blah. I read the whole thing in the last live stream that we did. So if you want to know my thoughts on all of this and my reaction to reading it, it's the exact same fucking thing, I'm pretty sure, that she sent me before in text message as well. And so yeah. Oh, you know what? Actually, this one is different because on text message she did not mention YouTube. I lied. You know what? Let's read this because I'm seeing YouTube right here. On text message she did not mention YouTube. Okay. Well, I had not posted about her on my TikTok. I reposted things and then I share to my stories that disappear in 24 hours, but I haven't made a TikTok post about her until today. But this was sent to me last night. You know what I'm saying? So that itself, you know what I mean? So, okay, hold on. So it says, hello. Through this letter, oh, it's been edited. Oh my God, I love how she edited it. You know what? I have the screenshots though. That's what it is. Okay. But the original screenshot does say TikTok and YouTube that I got, and I screenshot this as soon as I saw it, and I screenshot this last night. It's dated right there at like, I think that's 11:59 is when I saw it last night. Um, so yeah, but I think that shit is hilarious. So it's similar to the other one, but a little bit different. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me actually read this damn thing now. It says, "Hello. Through this letter dated October 29, 2024, the owner of Casze LLC intends to draw your attention towards an urgent concern that is related to a defamatory and unjust video you posted on your TikTok and YouTube account." The only video that I posted that's also on my TikTok and YouTube account is literally me reading the text message she sent. So that can't have been defamatory unless she's saying she's defamatory. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, and let me show you. This is the video in question. This is the only video that I have made on my TikTok about her. The only video. It's also posted on my YouTube, and it's literally just part of the intro from the bitchin' in my bathrobe thing where I got a call and text from her. I just posted the intro of that on here. And on there, I tagged also the designer, the real Jinsu, Alexandra Bueno, Boss Lady C101. Alexandra Bueno said, what is happening right now? I said, Sindera texted me last night saying she's going to sue me for defamation. Also, she was alleging the defamation was on my TikTok, but this is my first TikTok on this. Alexandra Bueno said, is there more context about why she'd be saying this somewhere? And I said, oh, I published a lot of content on this on my YouTube channel. But everything I published is public info with links on video description comments. I don't know why she's stressing because I unlist most of my videos after a time anyway. None of what I said, in my opinion, was what she alleges, but she blames me for her reputation. It's basically my interpretation of the damn messages she sent me trying to say that I'm causing harm to her. Like, how? And then Alexander Bono said, I'll definitely check out your YouTube in a bit. And I said, I appreciate you. Definitely don't expect you to watch it all because you already know all this. But if you watch a bit, I think you'll see why I don't think I did any of what she said. And I said two things I don't think you saw all of are, one, the Don slash the real Jinsu's full live is on my YouTube. You were at the end. And two, the text Sindera sent me. And yeah, whoops, another video autoplayed. My bad. Anyway, so I don't know if I linked this in the video, but I'll try to remember to. So yeah, that is the only video that is on my YouTube that I've made. Other than that, I've posted screenshots of the existence of my YouTube video previously into my stories. But literally whenever I do that, like I just screenshot the existence and I type youtube.com/@deafchild over it. And I post that to my stories, you know, those disappear in 24 hours. So, yeah, like, that alone is whatever. And, you also, like, if you can't just say, like, the whole video is defamatory or everything is defamatory, you know, you have to, or you can't even just say you posted a defamatory video, you know. You have to tell somebody, like when you send a cease and desist letter, you have to tell them what were the defamatory statements in order for them to cease and desist those statements. You can't just say, I don't want you talking about me, so I'm going to send you a cease and desist because it's all defamatory now. It doesn't really work that way. You got to tell me what. And another thing is, it's like, every fucking thing that I posted, there is a source for it. And I link all my sources in the description and the comments of my video. Everything is public record. It's all either the employees made their experience public or the clients did, or we covered court cases that were public record, or we covered the other media, press releases and other things that were out there. All of it was public record. So if there is a lie, you know, we'll go correct that. But like, you have to tell me what the lie is for me to correct it. Because to be like all of that is defamation, you can't convince me none of that happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, just my opinion. All right, and then it says defamatory statements about Casze LLC's business practice, service quality, and the claim that there is a CEO of Casze, which is false. So, I showed in yesterday's live stream, whenever I was reacting to this, I put it on the screen, and it's also in my Who is Dr. Zanzi video. Um, in there, Dr. Zanzi had Casze labeled as the CEO. And the employees, they were the ones who called Dr. Zanzi the CEO. And so the only reason I ever thought Dr. Zanzi was a CEO was because of whenever I saw like that was posted by the employees. I'm gonna trust that like or think that an employees think that someone is in a position or have reason to believe that, you know what I'm saying? Based on what their experience is. Like if I go into a restaurant and I ask who's the manager, I'm pretty sure they usually tell me who the fuck the manager is, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, but anyway, so fucking but for me it's like there's reason to see why I believe that. So if she's saying there is no CEO, we can correct that, and here's us doing that. But that's not how you do it. That you don't send a cease and desist for that. There are ways you issue updates or corrections for that, but that itself wouldn't be defamatory. And getting your CEO wrong couldn't hurt you when you have a worse reputation than the person we thought was your CEO. You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion, though. Um, but anyway, fucking. And then it says, therefore, this letter serves as a formal demand to cease and desist from making or disseminating defamatory statements about Casze LLC and its affiliates. You have to let me know which statements are defamatory for me to stop making them. But am I going to stop talking about the shit you're doing? Probably not. Does this make me want to keep talking about it? Definitely does. Anyway, um, you know what? I had a song that I was gonna save at the end, but I kind of don't feel like waiting, so I'm gonna play a little dedication to Casze.
Girl, bye, bitch, listen, fuck you, bitch, listen, fuck you.
Yeah, anyway, sorry about that, y'all. Okay, moving along. Fucking And then it says, in the personal video that we have, you have my personal information that is not public record. Okay, well, then tell me which video that is. Because I don't know what video that is. So, you know what I'm saying? Everything that I pulled up, I got it because it was public record. I don't have a way to access anything about you that's not public record. I got it from the internet, which is where it's public at, online, publication. When something is publicized on the internet, online, that means it's public. It was recorded on the internet, publicly. It's not private information anymore because it's public. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Am I wrong for thinking that? Is that just me? So everything that I've shared, I got links in the description of those videos for where that information came from. Okie dokie. Where is it at? He also listed my banking information. I did not list her banking information. And in my live stream last night, I proved where I did not list her banking information because the only time I come close to showing her bank is the bounced checks that the employees shared, but that was redacted. Her routing number and her account number are not on there. So, you know what I'm saying? Right. Um, And then it says, as a result of your actions, you have led numerous individuals to me that have threatened my life at my home location that you posted in the video. I don't believe I ever posted her home location in the video, first of all. Second of all, I've said throughout my live streams, I think anyone going after them is stupid as shit. I've very publicly discussed in my live stream, I don't think any type of violence or aggression should be happening over this type of bullshit fuckery because it's silly and there's no reason to be fighting over a fucking wedding dress and things like that. You know, I discussed this. Did you not see the rant on police brutality that I did too? But anyway, and then where it says led numerous individuals to her. Um, I have only gotten 1,000 views total. I showed as the time that she sent this message, I only had 1,000 views total all videos combined that I ever did on YouTube, and I showed the evidence for that in my live stream last night. So that's, and then she's gotten over 24 million. Over 24 million views on the whole situation. But she's saying I'm the one that's led numerous people to her because I haven't said anything like what? What are you talking about? I have told people don't go after you. Um and I've literally reached. Oh, Augusto said everything on the internet is public, but strange that you can get private information somehow. I don't know what hackers and scammers do, but I know you don't do that. Right, Augusto. Yes, I don't believe anything I've shared came from anything that was scammed or hacked because everything that I shared was public record. Like any court document that I shared was available on websites like Justia. Oh, thank you, Erica. Erica said, sorry she's doing this. You're just providing commentary based on public information. Thank you. Appreciate you. Fucking yeah, like the court cases that I shared were on like Justia and another one. I think it was Trellis and Justia where I found those two, if I'm not mistaken. Um, one was definitely Trellis. And, you know, like things like that, like those types of legal documentation, public record sources, right? Or the employee's story is the closest thing to being private that I shared. But everything that they shared is absolutely legal for them to document and share, and they redacted it. You know what I'm saying? Um, I did go through like in when I was Googling, I believe I would, you know, was doing this while live streaming some of the Googling and things like that. And so fucking if I Googled anything and anything came up while I was pulling things up online, I really believed it was her business address. You know, and so if it wasn't, if she lets me know which one it was, we can take that down, get it redacted instantly. But you can't just tell someone you've done this but not tell me where it is to take it down, because if I really had done this, wouldn't you want it taken down, and wouldn't you want to let me know the exact place it is so I can make sure it's taken down? You know what I'm saying? So it's like use some logic here. And then it says this is illegal, therefore I demand you to remove. Okay, well, you can get an attorney to send me a formal cease and desist letter. Instagram DMs are not a formal cease and desist letter. Um, by the way, let's just Google how can you legally send a cease and desist letter. It can be email, mail, or even in person. It needs to be certified mail. Um, Now, you have to clearly state the alleged violation and desired actions in the letter itself. She's not doing that, in my opinion. Right. Augusta said, right, if her business address is her real address, it's the dumbest thing she did. Right. And it's pretty common also for a lot of small business owners to have our personal address as our business address and things like that. But typically we don't put it online or register, like, because there's like different registration things. Like, if you don't, the way they get that data is from scraping it. So if you don't put it on your website, if you don't put it on Google Maps, they're not gonna find it. The only address that I know that was pulled up was, I believe, the Mississippi business registration paperwork. If that was her personal address or not, but at the same time, anyone can Google that and find that. Um, by the way, so it's, that wouldn't count as, in my opinion, like when you do register your business, you know what I'm saying? Oh, Erica Jones saying, according to her former employees, her business is her personal address. She works out of the conference rooms in her apartment building, allegedly. Okay, well, I didn't know that, but like it's already posted publicly everywhere, like, and you're gonna be very hard pressed to prove that I've gotten more views than she's gotten herself to her own address. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion. Like, I mean, I think she's like a fucking bitch, but I don't think anybody should go after her. I just think she's like a bitch. You know what I'm saying? Um, he anyway, it says under the laws governing defamation and business disparagement, specifically those found in the restatement second of tort section 55A and 623A, Casze LLC is protected against false statements that could injure their reputation in the business community. Right. You have to tell me what those statements are, though. You can't just be like, you talking about me is disparagement now. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's true, though, like, you would have to prove it's not true to have, like, a defamation disparagement case, you know? Augusto said, yeah, it's pretty common, but if you gotta be more of a public icon, like speech or whatever, like politics shit, then you have to put other address because there's gonna be disagreement and such. I don't know, just saying. Right. I feel like it's safer in general. A lot of people, they do PO boxes, or if they have a friend or a family owner that already owns a public business, they'll just fucking slap that address on there. You know? Um Things like that. Like, it's, yeah. Um and so, let's look this up. It says, alrighty, restatement of torts. It's saying a false and defamatory statement concerning another. I Okie dokie. Well, I don't believe we can prove that. If you let me know what the statement is to correct it, I'll make an update. I don't believe we're going to be able to get this element where it says an unpublished publication to a third party. Everything's been made publicly available online, public record. It's not illegal for me to cover what was published on social media and everything like that already about her. Because everything was redacted, everything was above the table. Like, yeah. And it says fault amounting at least to negligence on the part of the publisher with respect to the act of publication. I have the sources linked in each of the videos. I kind of want to be petty, go through all of the videos that I've done, and then combine all of the sources into one big ass list, and then go on these videos that I'm responding to this defamation claim and link every single link in the comments. Like, I might fucking do that, like, to show, this is where I did the research, and then we can see how many sources I ended up looking into for all of this, and we can see whether or not you think that was negligent coverage. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like it's due diligence on my part personally. Um, I will not be publishing my personal conversations with certain people, but whatever. You know what? I have a theory. This is just a conspiracy theory. I can't prove and don't know shit. But what if she's trying to slap me with this claim to try and get my make public record some of the text messages and things that were sent to me to see for her to try and see which employee is talking to me. What if that's what's happening? Hmm. Anyway, that's a conspiracy theory. That has no basis in reality. That's just shit that pops in my head. Okay. Fucking and then it says where are we? D. Either actionability of the statement irrespective of special harm or the existence of special harm caused by the publication. I feel like she's gonna really need to connect that me cover like that I somehow was connected to anybody making any type of harmful statement towards her because I don't believe I was. I do believe that, like people being upset with seeing the ramifications of how the other clients were treated and how the employees were treated were what led them to um, really change the narrative and change the tide on how they just talked to her. In fact, I covered that. I covered the comments. In my coverage, I read the comments. So, and then when I was reading the comments is when I was discussing that I thought it was shitty for people to be leaving some of the comments that they were leaving and not to be doing that. Anyway, oh, Augusto said I should be a lawyer too. Call me whenever I need you. Oh my God, did I not have the mental stability to be a lawyer? Erica said, didn't she say she had a lawyer? Wouldn't a lawyer have sent this to you if it was actually legitimate? It sounds like a chat GPT lawyer, in my opinion. Right, so we covered the other law cases on her. And in those legal cases, one of them was for a breach of contract, and another one, I forgot what it was, but in my opinion, if I remember correctly, to my knowledge, they were both financial related and business related. And I believe, in my opinion, she may have also taken out a PPP loan, as documented online. And so, fucking there are things that come to show, and then she allegedly, if the employees are correct and I do believe them, um she fucking is didn't pay a bunch of employees. So I don't believe she actually has the funds to file pro se litigant against me, and I don't think she's going to be able to hire an attorney on contingency without, because like she would, you know what I mean, like. And if she does hire an attorney, they're gonna actually send me a proper cease and desist letter. And in that cease and desist letter, they legally have to outline the specific statements that are defamatory and things like that. Um, but yeah, fucking let's see. What did she state? It said 558 and 623A is what she's citing. Let's go to 623A. Is that in here? No, we gotta go to another one. Okay, let's Google 623A. Ugh, why are you behind a paywall? Fuck you. This just cites it. It doesn't tell me about it. Well, that's unfortunate. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. Well, Let's see. No, that's not it. If you're gonna cite something, why don't you cite something accessible? Wait, hold up. What was the message? Why is it so hard to find out what the fuck? Oh, here we go. Finally, give me some. Where are you? Come on. Why did you pull up for this if you're not gonna give me the right fucking law? What if is 623A even in use anymore? Like, why can't I find it anywhere? Huh. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm about to give up. Erica says your conspiracy theory really isn't that far off. My opinion is that she's afraid of these ex-employees. She needs to know who she's talking. I gotta get my kid to bed, but I'm gonna come back and finish this for sure. Ooh, I hope you have a good night. I appreciate you for joining me. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna do add some timestamps so y'all can skip through all this. I'm gonna try not to spend too much more time on this fucking because why is just bothering me so much? Just the fact that I can't find the 623A part now. Um. Oh, here it is. Is this it? No, this is the same thing where it just like cites it. Well, that's unfortunate. Who cares? It's like if you're citing a law that you can't even find online, I doubt she even knows what the law is herself. She's probably just copying and pasting shit. Oh, malice! Must have also acted with malice, is what this said, meaning they knew the statement was false or they acted in reckless disregard the statement's truth or falsity. Okay, I don't believe any statement I've made is false, so you're not going to be able to prove that because I'm pretty sure everything I've shown is fact, to my knowledge. Everything I shared what I processed as I was processing it, you know? And then acted in reckless disregard. I don't feel I acted in reckless disregard of the statement's truth or falsity. In fact, I've looked a lot into what the different sources of the statements I could be are, and providing different links to different opinions that go in different directions on these ideas. I feel like I've provided a pretty balanced side. Like the entire time, I've provided things that are positive and negative about both Caze and Rayleigh. I just don't have anything negative to say about the employees or the other clients. You know what I'm saying? I don't have anything negative to say about them. You know why? Because they didn't do anything. They weren't assholes online that I've seen. They were. I haven't seen it yet. You know, I'm not calling them. You know what I mean? That's not came out wrong. But you know what I'm saying? Here, I'll link this little article. This little Bloomberg dipshit thing. Oh, I guess it's the same fucking thing that I exited out earlier. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. I mean, do y'all even want me to link this if you're supposed to pay or subscribe or whatever? Whatever. I'll just link the search result page. Um, all right. Sorry, let's get back on here. Fucking, and then it says, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Furthermore, Georgia Code Title 51, Chapter 5 outlines the liability for making and disseminating statements that are knowingly false and intended to cause harm to a business entity's reputation. Right. I'm definitely gonna do that thing where I go through and I make one list of all of my sources and then I go put that on the videos that I don't have another reason to have sources on for. That's what I'm gonna do. Um, anyway, Georgia Code Title 51 or whatever, it says, libel and slander within the broader category of torts law defining what constitutes libel and publication is required for a libel claim. Oh, so she's gonna do this in Georgia court? Can we do this in Florida court instead though? Because I got some friends in Miami and I'd rather go to Miami than Georgia. Like, let's do let's do this in, you know what, or Mississippi. I was born in Mississippi. You gonna do this in Mississippi or Florida instead? Like, you really want to go to Georgia? You really want to do it in Georgia? We can do it in Georgia, but I'd rather do it in Mississippi or Florida. Why don't you come do it in New Orleans? Anyway, it says definition of libel: a false and malicious defamation of another person expressed in writing, print, pictures, blah 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 blah, that tends to injure their reputation and expose them to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule. Right. I don't think. Okay. So I don't think that anybody has I don't really think that I'm exposing you to ridicule if I'm just sharing what you did on a social media platform. Wouldn't that be you yourself exposing yourself to ridicule? Oh, Augusto, you live in Georgia? You live there, you can bring the popcorn? Dude, yes. We'll live stream while we're at the court hearing. And yeah, fucking maybe, dude. What if I can get Kaze to live stream with me? Why? What? That's a much better idea, Kaze. Why don't you just join a live stream with me? I will put you up in here on my panel. We'll do a video. Oh, what the fuck am I doing on my clip? Sorry, y'all. We'll do a video panel thing. Kaze and I can do a live stream, and she can share her side of the story. I can interview her. Let's do it. Anyway, Um, but literally, I've shared her side. I've shared literally like all of the state. So, huh? And then it said, so yeah, I don't really understand how you doing these things and getting over 24 million views isn't exposing yourself to the public hatred, contempt, or ridicule. But me talking about how you did that is, I never tried to ridicule you. Um, Anyway, I guess I said maybe one day, yeah. But yeah, fucking also, and also for it says that, right? So it has to be a false and malicious defamation that does these things too. And so because you can't prove the false, because it's true and it's not with bad intent, it was just me talking about what happened. Like, I literally did this with the intent. I started out on the intent of being on the side of Kaze. So I don't think you're gonna be able to prove that I ever had like malicious intent, because I thought like, so you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. And then even still, I still continue to argue that I believe the dress was stolen. I still continue to argue that. And so I think that's hilarious right there too, because I'm like the only person I've seen that like argues that. Everybody else I've seen is 100% on the side of Rayleigh did nothing wrong, is what almost everybody else. I'm not trying to speak for people, but that's like the mentality I feel, the energy I feel when I went from the commentary I reacted to. Um, like almost everybody else. There was like, I think one fucking video where this other bitch was like, nah, Rayleigh, I'm questioning you still. There's only one other bitch besides me that I saw that was like actually like, I don't know. But everybody else was like, yeah, fuck Kaze. That's like the thing. I was like one of the only people that was still standing 10 toes down, like, no, the dress is stolen. And so, how are you gonna come at me for defamation when I'm like the only bitch that still fucking took your side? Are you kidding me? It's Huberche. Anyway, fucking, and then it said publication. Well, obviously I'm publishing shit. And then slander, false and defamatory oral statement that harms a person's reputation. Okay. Right. I don't believe I said anything false or defamatory, and you have to let me know what those statements were in order for me to stop disseminating them. Augusto said, yeah, she isn't thinking through. She feel attacked, but in reality, she's doing that to herself. She just wanted to blame someone. I agree. Um, and then fucking privileged communications, and it said certain communications are considered privileged under Georgia law, meaning they are protected from defamation claims even if they are defamatory, such as statements made in legal proceedings or fair and honest reports of legislative proceedings. So, yeah. Um, so my if my reports of the court proceedings wouldn't, in my opinion, would not be able to have been taken account potentially by their law in terms of the defamation claim because I was reporting on the court proceedings. So we can ignore those with those claims is right here too. Um, and then it says, therefore, Casze LLC hereby demands the immediate removal of the aforementioned video and any other content related to or based upon the allegations therein. What video though? You didn't mention a specific video to delete. And so I can't remove anything, or and I'm not going to just delete a whole video. You know, I'll redo a video. If you tell me which part was a lie, I can redo that video to correct that part, right? But like, I'm not going to just delete my content. Most of my content gets unlisted anyway. So, and it's like, I don't get that many views anyway. I probably won't ever go anywhere anyway. You know what I mean? Not that I don't have dreams, but just being realistic about what society thinks of me. Fucking but anyway, so and then it said failure to comply with this demand within 48 hours of receive this letter leave Casze LLC with no choice but to pursue all available legal remedies, including seeking injunctive relief and damages. I ain't got no fucking money. I'm broke as shit, so you ain't getting none from me because I can't pay it, bitch. Good luck with that. The fucking injunctive reliefs you think you're gonna get. Um, that is hilarious. Anyway, fucking and then also no, what you're gonna do if because you're not I don't think she would be able to file pro se as a litigant and fully see the case through. She would have to find an attorney to take her case. I don't think she can afford an attorney to take her case, but if she actually found an attorney to take her case, they would write and send me a proper cease and demand letter with the actual statements and the actual like videos for me to go through and correct or update that information. And they would be giving me at least 30 days to do so because it would be unrealistic to expect this to be updated within 48 hours. Not with the amount of content I did. That's unrealistic as shit. Um, you know what I'm saying? Like there's like guidelines and there's ways in the law like you don't just get to demand someone does something like but what do you guys think is going to happen in 48 hours? So she sent this to me at 7:35, 7:40. So that means tomorrow night at 7:35 or 7:40, I'm gonna just find a reason to live stream because that's when the 48 hours are up and I just feel like I want to count it down. I got 48 hours from 7:35 yesterday. That's 7:35 tomorrow. We're live streaming. um And yeah, the only available legal remedy that you're going to be able to get from me would be a court order to take down any defamatory statements. But literally, I've already offered to do that so we can save the time and money. You just have to tell me what the defamatory statements are for me to fix it. And it's not defamation if it's like if it was defamatory in terms of I shared someone else that was saying something defamatory, because I also shared like a bunch of commenters, and I shared the employee side and I shared the client side. So if there's something that was said that can be proven that was defamation by someone else and I just shared that or whatever, then yeah, that we could do that. But like we could argue that, but like I myself legally have not defamed anybody because everything I shared, I have a source for it. Um, Augusta said 48 hours. Let's do an accounting like New Year's Eve. Let's see what happens. Right, 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 right. Oh man. Instead of the ball dropping, what is it gonna be though? Three, two, one, nothing? Right. Right. It's just like New Year's though, when we make a New Year's resolution and nothing changes. I'm sorry. Um, and then fucking says, please govern yourselves accordingly. I'm only one person. Like, who is she talking to? And then it says, and confirm in writing the removal of the defamatory content. What defamatory? Confirm in writing what the defamatory content is if you want me to remove something that you think is defamatory. It said, it is my firm belief and hope to resolve this matter amicably without causing LLC's recourse to litigation. Right. Then you can literally just text me and or message me and you could have just said, "Hey, this is the statement that is false. This is what needs to be fixed." Like whenever you said all of this, it's illegal and he demanded me to remove it. Nothing that I said was illegal and or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, mm, yeah. Fucking It says, thank you for your immediate attention to this serious matter. Sincerely, Casze LLC. Right. Your life really must be, never mind I was, I didn't want to ridicule her, but I was about to say your life must be a joke if you think this is serious. But then that might be me ridiculing her, huh? Isn't it? I didn't mean to ridicule her. That was just my first thought to the statement. Anyway, yeah. Do not ridicule her. We take her very seriously. Everybody, you know what? Let's think real hard. Let's all think and see if we can come up with something nice to say about Casze. Let's do that. She's very funny. What do you think? Do you have something nice to say about Casze? Anyway, okay. Um, we try. We're trying to spread positivity here. Fucking moving on. Yeah, I think this wraps up our Casze conversation. Oh my god. Like I still said, she's literally fighting a losing battle. It's embarrassing. And it is. I can understand that. And that's not, we've all been embarrassed. There's nothing wrong with embarrassing yourself. I fell off the stage at my high school graduation. I really did. So there's nothing wrong with embarrassing yourself. I just got like lucky because like I graduated 2012 and that was right when like, video phones and cameras and everything was like around and like a thing, but it really sucked with the quality at that point. And I did take pictures at my graduation and all of that and stuff, but um the quality just isn't like what you see now. So it's people don't like video like the way they do now, like you know what I mean? Like so I wish someone got that on video though, but fucking yeah, so there's nothing wrong with embarrassing yourself in public because we all do it, just not all of us do it online. But I do it online all the time because I don't really give a fuck. Like, I will just say something. And then, like one time someone made a video and they said New Orleans, and then they said New Orleans, and then they said New Orleans. And in the same video, they're in New Orleans, but they couldn't, like, they weren't able to say it right. They're like saying it a different way each time because I don't think they knew how to say it. And then they were on Decatur Street. And they're literally outside Molly's on the market on Decatur, and they're filming, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm on Bourbon Street," and I'm like, so I commented, I was like, "By the way, you're on Decatur, you're not on Bourbon, and it's pronounced New Orleans, by the way," and I typed out like how to say New Orleans, and then like they video replied to me telling me that like trying to ridicule me, telling me that I didn't know about the city, that they knew more about the city than me, and all of this. It was like so weird. And then they were trying to say that I was making fun of them for being disabled, and I was like, what? Um, and so because I have mental disabilities, I have speech impediments. So I'm like, if I do make fun of you, let me know and I'll correct that, like, and I apologize. But however, it was like the way it was said, like in the context of this conversation, where I'm like, hey, this isn't Bourbon Street. And you're like, you're making fun of my disability. I was like, what? What the fuck? And then this one bitch was just like, she doesn't even know New Orleans. And it was this bitch named Sam Bordelon, who I went to high school with. She's in my middle school and high school yearbook. And she literally sent me a friend request on Facebook, and it's still on pending. And I was just like, we literally went to Riverdale together. The fuck you mean I don't know New Orleans? Like, what? And it was so weird too. I'm like, how are you gonna be arguing with me that Molly's on the market is on Bourbon Street when it's on fucking Decatur? And if you can't tell the difference between Decatur Street and Bourbon Street, don't tell me you know fucking New Orleans. Anyway, I'm so sorry I'm on this tangent. I don't really know how I got here, but but anyway, so people were trying to embarrass me in that conversation, trying to make me feel like I didn't know the city, and I was just like, what? And it was mostly people who don't live here. And the one bitch that I went to high school with, she stays in Jefferson Parish. I don't think she ever fucking comes to Orleans Parish. Like, anyway, that's, but you know what? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, fucking. So now we're moving on into the Madeline Pendleton situation. Oh shit, no, back again. I am so sorry I'm like this. One more time on the Caze situation. So before, even though it's verified, you can pay on Instagram and Facebook or whatever to get the fucking verified badge and shit. So I don't always trust it because there are some people who will pay to get verified and they're not actually the goddamn thing. Because even though you have to like have submit an ID and all this shit, but they'll find ways to come up with some documentation, and stuff. So I checked, making sure it is Kaze that messaged me, in my opinion. And so yeah, fucking but so I was scrolling through because I wanted to see what the conversation was about the dress on Instagram as well. Um, and one of the things that I noticed were that the comments are off here, and she's just saying our two and one bridal gowns are the most popular. Watch for the transition. She's using this situation to promote herself. Two in one couture bridal gown, literally so beautiful, and it's got the same no, the comments are off, but it says point of view, the dress that the bride stole, that video. This other one, it says when you spend 5 months making this wedding dress just for the client to steal it, that initial video that got posted, this one is still up as is. So I did notice that she still does have these videos up. I feel like I saw another one up before the live stream, but I wonder if she took it down. Um, oh no, it's right here. So 3 weeks ago, oh man, okay, my OBS got disconnected and reconnected, so I don't know at what point it was it went away for you guys for what I was talking. So I'm sorry about that. But fucking so what I was saying though was like I think she's trying to sell the dress. All of the comments on here are positive. Um, I think that she maybe, so like she's obviously been able to do some pretty good damage control with the comments. And we previously covered like with the damage control where she had turned off comments and were removing comments. So in my opinion, she's been making it so people either can't comment to her because comments are turned off, or she's filtering them and moderating them heavily. I would be hard pressed to believe that anybody in my community would be going after her, if she tells me who those people are, if they are in my community, I will block them. I will remove them. I don't tolerate a certain level of shit because as y'all know, a lot of you know my trauma. You know my family history. You know my personal trauma. A lot of you do. So I do take, violence very seriously. I believe in a certain level of a right to defend yourself, but on a certain level, I take a certain amount of abuse and violence and oppression very seriously because of sexual assault, because of genocide, because of my family members being missing, because of myself being considered MM. At a point, like, there are these things that people, when you look, people don't understand, like, how things impact us. And so, like, my space that I cultivate is in the deaf community, and then people who are, in support of that, as well as people connected to my family and my family history. And so because of that, the spaces I move in, it's like we are the ones out there trying to go find people who are missing and murdered. So yeah, the only person, there are things that I've said, that like out of anger, people say things that they can't take back. Like I've said those things, said things that I shouldn't say before, like, but not towards Kaze ever. You know what I mean? Like everything that I've said in relation to Kaze is in the live stream playlist. So you know what I mean? And so yeah, but we're all human beings. But yeah, I feel like, her marketing is gonna do fine. Like, no, like so many people still want the dress, as you can see in the comments, So many people, when like, she has a lot of her comments, maybe they're not loading, but some of them look like they're turned off. No, this one is turned off. But here, the comments, they're all look really good, And so I feel like overall, she's gonna do fine because she's managing the comments, doing the damage control. There's always going to be a certain number of conversion rate. I think that that's what her and Madeline Pendleton actually have in common, even though they both are pissing off a lot of people, because I don't believe either of them are necessarily moving in a value aligned way in their business that could be perceived as ethical. Um, both of them fucking like what I don't know, what was I saying? Yeah, both of them though, they have a large loyalty. They have a large following. And they have people who are very loyalty, and they've grown to a point to where they're still going to be able to reach enough people to have a conversion rate to stay in business, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Um, Even if there are things that are wrong with her business, that's how she's continued to keep going, even though she can't pay her employees, allegedly. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you gotta go. My bad, Augusta. I just saw this. Good night. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoy everything. Thank you for joining me. You were awesome. My OBS had crashed, and I think the comments came in weird. Thank you for joining me tonight. Fucking, so, yeah. Fucking, alrighty. Let's move on from this for real now because we have stayed on it long enough. Now we're really going to move into the Madeline Pendleton situation. I apologize, I'm a little spacey tonight. Um, fucking, so, Kel had messaged me this video that I want to talk about, but fucking in it, and in another video that we discussed previously that Kelp had shared about Madeline blocking Kelp. I apologize, Kelp blocking him. Um, fucking, and you see there, right there is an issue where I need to decolonize. Like, how many times am I getting the goddamn pronouns wrong? And it's like, who wants to be friends with someone or like have someone in their space that can't get the pronouns right, even if it's an accident, right? Okay, but fucking well, I just mean, I don't know. Okay, I'm overthinking. Okay, so, but Cope said, I don't understand how she gets away with all of this by tokenizing her Palestinian family member. It's gut wrenching. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And before I do, though, Kelp had sent me this post, and it goes into Madeline criticizing Operation Olive Branch. And I think there are good reasons to criticize Operation Olive Branch and Erin Hatmeyer, or whatever the fuck her name is. Um, but the but basically, what I don't like is an where Madeline is saying, you know, like, I've seen multiple people run GoFundMe scams. That's a good statement. I wouldn't mind if it was that narrative only. Um, and talking about don't trust major nonprofit or aid centers. Well, I get how certain ones, you know, like Salvation Army doesn't do shit. Okay, fine. There are no good places or ways to donate. That I don't agree with, and I'm surprised more people aren't upset by this. I feel like, because, you know, I follow people who are Palestinian and they do share, like, actual links to people you can go support and help. So it's just like, I don't know. I feel like, you know, there's a certain level of, like, for me, for example, within my own communities, when we share GoFundMe links, like, among ourselves and with others to share, like, those are real GoFundMe links, and that's why we are sharing them. And so when you know you're getting it from the community members, then that's when you know it's valid. And so I would say I don't like the whole narrative where there are no good ways to donate or whatever, because there are. You just need to go actually get in communities specifically with people impacted by it. You know what I'm saying? Um, Now the rest of this, I'm not gonna. It's linked in the description of this video, but I'm not going to talk about it right now because I have thoughts on tokenization as it relates to Palestinian, and I don't even know if me saying like, well, I follow people who are actually sharing like, you know, but at the same time, I think for me, what's happening with Palestine, I see them as indigenous, and so for me, it's also about like on one level, like in indigenous community, like there's like a big push where tribe, like we don't each tribe because there's no community is a monolith, like no one should be speaking for other tribes that you're not a part of is kind of like a common mindset in a lot of our communities, because it's like why would we speak on your tribal history when we have our own, right? And so to a certain extent, you know, I really cannot speak to Palestine's genocide because that's their own thing. But yeah. So Idiot Chicken said her using her Palestinian family as shields again. Um, yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So I found this Reddit thread, and I don't know if this is true or not, but in the Reddit thread it said now she thinks she can't be criticized because she has Palestinian family. The Palestinian family in question being her cousin's husband. And this is in the Reddit thread for TikTok gossip in the comments called Madeline Pendleton is a landlord, something she claims to hate. And then if you scroll down in the comments, and you have to click like more comments or whatever, um, it's up in here. So fucking if this is true. Now, if Madeline has Palestinian ancestry and people are negating that, that itself is indigenous erasure. So if she has Palestinian ancestry, it would be very harmful of me to make statements being like, well, this is tokenizing, this is harmful, whatever, because that would be her ancestry, right? Um, but if she does not have the ancestry, then yeah, I really feel like, um, where the question is her cousin's husband, um, this is extremely problematic in my opinion. And I'm only gonna speak from I can't from like general just indigenous genocide perspective from having indigenous ancestry. And just being like a descendant. Okay, I and like surviving like my dad's family survived genocide, several genocides, but some key historical ones, you know what I'm saying? um and so there's a certain level in which, you know what I mean, you have to respect when people have survived genocide, but we're still here, we're trying to speak for ourselves, you have to respect the difference when you're platforming yourself in relation to us. How are you using that narrative? You know what I'm saying? Like, so are you trying to um, just share your stance or so on something and just let it be known where you are on human rights issues? Like on a certain level, I think that's very important, right? But are you um growing your platform off of it? Are you misleading people with it? Are you using it in a way to misrepresent yourself? That's where I think we come into issues. Like, so for me, I have to always be very careful to say, like, not because, and here's another thing. Here's why the entitlement matters. Because for people who are actually indigenous or have indigenous ancestry, we are still trying to reconnect to our own language, culture, history, and teachings because of forced cultural assimilation into mainstream society. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so you have to remember, like, so the way that Americans speak about Israelis, they don't seem to process that they're no different. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is not a single difference between an American and an Israeli when it comes to perpetuating genocide over indigenous people, in my opinion. And so when you're an American acting like Israelis are bad, but you're not realizing how you're the settler colonizer. And even me, like, so I don't believe in blood quantum on one level, but on another level, it's like when I am someone with that mixed ancestry, that is something I have to contend with, you know? Um, because I also come from colonizers too, right? Like, so I see both sides of that because I was raised on both sides of that. Um, and that's just my opinion. It is really hard for people who are actually indigenous and people who grow up with an indigenous lived experience to get seen and heard. And someone who is a pretendian or who tokenizes their relationship to a indigenous person or someone who is a descendiant like me is more likely to get benefits from being seen as indigenous than a person who actually grew up and raised and is connected to being indigenous. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so that itself is already a battle we have. Like when people, we are already trying to struggle to find our own place in our community. Um, and so whenever you're trying to um, present yourself as having a closer proximity to an indigenous community than you have, like I think that is extremely problematic because on one level, I get that your cousin's husband, if that's what it is family-in-law, if that's what it is. But so when you say I have like like I'm gonna just say indigenous instead, like you know, if you say I have an indigenous family member and they're you say I have indigenous family, but the only indigenous family you have is your cousin's husband, that is a little misleading in my opinion. Because you're trying to make people believe that you have some sort of strong connection to an indigenous community, but you don't actually have one. You know what I'm saying? And people like indigenous community has to be gatekept because of genocide. And so when you whitewash that, you're perpetuating the genocide, in my opinion. I need to process this more, but there is just a lot that doesn't sit right with me. And so let's watch her reaction real quick. So somebody says, do you have any episodes on Palestine on your podcast? And we'll see what she says. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't give me captions for this.
If you have been wondering, like, why the fuck the United States lets Israel basically do whatever it wants, I do actually have a podcast episode about this, yes. A full disclosure.
It really does make me uncomfortable that settler colonizers like Madeline are trying to speak on indigenous genocide. She has no connection to indigenous communities, and she shouldn't be doing that. She should be uplifting and amplifying the voices of indigenous people instead. It's one thing to, speak your political beliefs or something, but this isn't something I like because you can't speak from a perspective of decolonizing when you're the colonizer. You know what I'm saying? And we've already covered how she defended people who said, in my last live stream I did on Madeline, she's defending Engels and she's defending Karl Marx. And Karl Marx said to Engels that the N-word, that a common N-word is a degenerate of a much lesser one or something like that. That is what Karl Marx was saying, and this is what she's defending. And then Karl Marx also said to Engels that he was happy to see a Jewish N-word leave, and he was happy that the guy that he called a Jewish N-word lost money. That's what Madeline supports and defends. So because of that, I do consider her a white supremacist, in my opinion. I do think that if you agree with that type of statement and you defend the people making it, that is a form of white supremacy, in my opinion. But that's just me, and I covered that in my other video. So fucking, that's also why it makes me uncomfortable when if this is true, if she actually is Palestinian, then it's very harmful for me to sit here and act like she's not indigenous enough, right? That would be really fucked up. So if she's actually Palestinian and people are sitting here acting like she's not indigenous enough, that's indigenous erasure, that's genocide, that's problematic. But if she's not Palestinian and she keeps saying, I have Palestinian family, but the only Palestinian family she has is the Palestinian family in question being her cousin's husband. If that is true, and I don't know if it is or isn't, but if that's true, that's fucked up. That's anti-Indigenous. That's tokenization, that's discrimination, that's oppression, that's exploitation of Indigenous trauma for your profit. A colonizer settler profiting off of Indigenous genocide is never going to be a good thing. Um, but that's just me, because the podcast is marketing. This is getting her views. This is marketing. This generates her money long term. That's just me. I don't feel right with it if she's not Indigenous. If she is, then it's fucked up of me to be questioning it or invalidating it. And if she's not, it's fucked up of her to be acting like a pretendian, in my opinion.
Disclosure, I have family members who are Palestinian, and
So that's, you see right here, straight from the horse's mouth, she just said, I have family members that are Palestinian. So
I have a podcast that's about like political and social issues mostly. It's called Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. And I wanted to do an episode about Palestine, but I wanted to do something that would be more of a unique perspective, something that like I felt like
this is why I don't like, where like, that's why I say, this is why I associate her with white supremacy. Because no one's going to have a more unique perspective on Palestine than Palestinians. Not you. Your perspective is not more unique. This is what I don't like. If you want to have a more unique perspective, make that on your lived experience. You know what I'm saying? If you have no lived experience, like that's someone's genocide isn't something that you get, that you should be trying to one up somebody's perspective on. That's what I don't like. That really rubs me the wrong way. But everybody really sucks her dick, just like people do for Trump. They're like, yes, daddy. So
I could talk about as an American in a way that made sense to me.
And this is like, what? That's just like an Israeli going like, yeah, I have a podcast on the genocide of 1666 as an Israeli in a way that makes sense to me. I know it's gonna be the most fucked up Zionist bullshit ever when that happens. You know what I'm saying? And America was built on Zionism too. I covered that in my the family search live stream.
And that's just because there are a lot of amazing Palestinian activists talking about their stories and their experiences, and those are people I think we should.
So then why would you have led with, let me find a way to be more unique than them? What? And then now you're going to be like, oh yeah, but go listen to them. Stop taking up space. You shouldn't be trying to take up space on Indigenous issues if you're not connected.
Should be listening to. So the thing I wanted to talk about specifically when I did this episode was the United States' special relationship with Israel.
Something doesn't feel right. Like, on one level, it's just like, yeah, I agree that the relationship between Israel and America is important to discuss. But on another level, when you're an American settler colonizer wanting to discuss the relationship between other settler colonizers, talking about how you need to make your perspective more unique to discuss the genocide, there's just something that seems like you're trivializing it and trying to fucking just like monetize it. And I don't like it. Like, this isn't content. This isn't a content piece for you. There's just a way in which people who aren't impacted by oppression or social issues, or people who don't actually understand genocide, They just like to theorize the genocide without, that's what I don't like, It's real easy for them to theorize because they don't know shit about what it's actually like.
We get out of the deal, basically, and how interconnected our two economies are. Odds are you've probably seen some things about Israel that are really shocking to you. Like, for example, US aid money helps people in Israel have universal health care. We don't.
And I also wonder if she ever shares her sources because I know on some level I don't share sources on some things because I'm like, fuck it, y'all can just Google that shit. Y'all, do you really need me to share a source on every fucking single thing I say, right? But on another level, it's like when that's the theme, the topic of what I'm talking about, like I always share my sources, or like sometimes, if I sit there and I'll have like 50 sources for a video, that would be taking me all day if I go put all 50 sources everywhere I post a video. So instead, I'll say the sources are on YouTube, you know? Things like that. Fucking, but yeah, like I never see her share her sources, and that's another thing that bothers me.
Don't have universal health care in the United States, or that US made bombs are being dropped on Palestinian.
The US made bombs? Oh my god, I didn't know that! I'm just kidding, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Some people really don't know that though. I'm sorry. If you didn't know that, that's totally cool. Like, we all learn something new every day. Um,
Families and children. Something like 15,000 Palestinian children have been murdered by Israel since October. And before that, thousands more were murdered. And this is.
so here's where I'm over here just like, yeah, thousands and thousands of children were murdered. There's just like, go listen to my podcast. Thousands of children were murdered. Does that not feel wrong to anybody else? No? Just me? Okay. All right.
All done with the United States financial support and backing. And I think it can be something that is hard to understand the motivations for unless you really.
Okay, it's not hard to understand the motivations for, but what? Are you kidding me? And the other thing is where she acts like, yeah, you don't understand this as much as I do, yet she doesn't understand what she's talking about.
Dive into what the United States gets out of this deal. And the two main things it comes down to is one, flow of oil. The United States relies on oil being transported through the Suez Canal. And any attempts that countries in that region have made to kind of nationalize industries or take control of things like their waterways has been financially bad for capital. So
Um, I really feel like oil is part of things that are going on, but it's actually very minimal. Like, this isn't, no, I don't think she understands fully. So, she doesn't, like, what? So, it's not that those things aren't real, but it's just like when you're gonna sit here and you're gonna be talking about the connection between the genocide between Israel and America, but then you're gonna go connect it to oil instead of indigenous erasure and the land grab. It's just like, use your brain. Use your brain. This is why she shouldn't be having these types of conversations because it doesn't impact her and she doesn't understand the connection or what the shit actually means. Like, she's going to the superficial part. Obviously money's always part of the thing, but that's not gonna, whew, that's just dumb.
the United States has wanted what they consider to be an ally in the region that they can count on to make sure that they have access to that oil. And not even just along the Suez Canal, also when it comes to oil mining, for example. And the second thing is that basically Israel allows the United States to use the whole country as our own military base in the region. And that
she acts like Israel doesn't do the same over here because they come over here and they join our military forces and they join our police forces and it's a cross training thing. It's all connected. Does she not understand how Israel was formed? You know what I'm saying? Um, anyway, fuck.
That's important because the United States is fighting secret wars around the globe constantly. So having
And I also, I too, this one I'm just passionate about, so it sounds like I'm nitpicking, but I'm not like trying to nitpick her at this, but because, when you're not informed, it's really easy to call genocide war because you don't understand what you're discussing. But I think she might mean genocides. I mean, because America is more involved in genocides than wars, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
basically a military outpost that's an entire country there, where we have special agreements where we're able to use their storage facilities, use their weapons if we want. They can.
But also, we have these types of agreements with a lot of places. So it's just like, for me, it's just like, but here's this is it. Where she's over here attributing specific things to this like big connection between America and Israel are shit that America does in a bunch of other places. The actual connection between America and Israel that she doesn't understand because she's not impacted by these social issues is how it relates to the genocide of Indigenous people. You know what I'm saying? And this is seen in other places, obviously, with America's involvement, such as in Africa, right? But in terms of if we look at the war in Congo, what are we doing when we are trying to go get their fucking minerals for our goddamn phones and shit? I don't know enough about the correct mineral, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so, and this is just me rambling, not a source for this. These are just my beliefs that I'm just rambling off the top of my head. But, fucking, I believe that's a genocide, for example, right? And I believe, in that genocide, America is committing genocide against people in Africa, right? Um, and so there's like all of these different comparisons and similarities to where we have, but America actually hasn't done a full on land grab genocide of every single indigenous place, right? Instead, it was other countries. I'm just kidding. Well, fucking, that's where I think she's like kind of going left field with where she's just like, yeah, because capitalism is, but that's not really, in my opinion, because for me, yeah, capitalism funded it and kept going and kept helping, but take it back. What was happening before all of that, right? We'd have to go way back. I don't know. Like, I might have to do a whole nother live stream just on this topic. Okay, let's.
Use our weapons. It's strategically advantageous from a militaristic perspective. And the thing you have to know about the US military is that what we do around the planet is to uphold the interests of rich people here. So yes, I do have an episode on my podcast, Pick Me Up I'm Scared, about Palestine, but it is mostly just about the United States' special relationship with Israel.
I wouldn't trust that as a valid source. That's just me personally. Um, but yeah.
Why we support them financially, why we let them get away with whatever they want. And if you want to listen to it, the episode is called Nobody is Allowed to Commit War Crimes Except for Me and Maybe the Boy. To reference.
And here's another thing. It's just like over here, it's like when I see a white person try and lead a diversity, equity, inclusion movement, and it's like when I see a white person try and speak on racism and make podcasts on how to be anti-racist. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like when I see a hearing person make a podcast about how to be deaf friendly, or it's like when I see a hearing person make a podcast about how to support deaf people. Like, it's people who have no lived experience on these issues and literally have no clue, no lived understanding of what they're speaking on. You know what I mean? Trying to generate views off of being perceived as a thought leader and exploiting other people's trauma instead of giving them the platform. I don't know.
Reference to that Simpsons meme somebody made a long time ago. So you can check it out. It's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify, it's on most places where you can get podcasts.
So yeah, whenever you're someone like sitting here like, yeah, a bunch of kids are fucking dead, go watch my podcast on Apple and Spotify. It's hard for me to think that you actually care about human rights because you remind me of the people who are making documentaries about Jeffrey Dahmer. Um, anyway, fucking, okay, that's the same link twice. We went over that, And then it also reminds me, I did a video called I Don't Trust Myrnie Ann 83 Missgnomers Catherine Temp Deaf No More Than Hearing About Deafness. So in this video, Myrnie Ann 83 is trying to teach people that the sign for Israel, this is a sign for Israel, is this sign, which is a sign for Jewish. So she had, did I timestamp that? Shit, let's find it. My bad, y'all. Um, because I'm over here like, nah, this shit had me fucked up. Right here, this sign, she called this is not real, is what she's saying is Israel. This is a sign for Jewish. It doesn't mean Israel. Those are different concepts, okay? So right here, this is a woman claiming to be an interpreter but doesn't know the difference between Jewish and Israel. She also taught that this is the sign for water, but this means wine in sign language. This is the sign for water. And then she also taught help wrong, but I forgot what she did that was wrong, but she did it wrong, I swear. And she also was trying to teach the food was with for, but she doesn't know the difference between a verb and a noun. But anyway, so she can't teach sign language for shit. She's trying to teach signs. I was trying to correct her, and she was trying to teach sign language about Palestine. And I was trying to correct her, like, none of this is correct. And all of the hearing people are like, thank you so much. Now I know how to sign. I'm like, none of this is correct. And they were all gaslighting me. And I go, so to the point, I go to every deaf person I know. I'm like, am I wrong? Am I wrong? I feel, they're like, no, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? And so she's teaching that this sign is Israel. It does not mean Israel. It means Jewish. The sign for Israel is like this. So why that matters is later on down the road, she had this other bitch. She had this bitch right here. Who was trying to say we should use sign language to skirt the algorithm because machine algorithms don't know signs yet. Actually, it does. That's a whole different conversation. But also, the argument that we should exploit a language that we are oppressed for using is fucked up. Like, are you kidding me? And third, I was telling her she was signing, where is it? Okay, right before this then. So she was signing, instead of signing Jewish people, instead of signing Israel, she was signing Jewish people here. Somewhere up in here. Where did I get it? Okay, hold on. So in this video, I go watch this whole fucking video. Why? I wish I timestamped this. But I tried to go click forward, but then I keep missing it. But then I know what happened, and I feel crazy. But whatever. So in the live stream that we're watching, hold on, I'm just waiting for her to sign the wrong sign. Wait a minute. So she had stitched um Murney Ann 83, who was doing the wrong signs that I told you about earlier. This person, she had stitched her. Um, and then used the wrong sign that she taught. Only it's taking me forever to get to it. I'm gonna go to times playback speed. Just went normal. Ugh, this is annoying me. I'm sorry. I could have sworn that I covered this. Now I'm just waiting for it. I don't even want to watch it anymore. But fucking now it's just bugging me. Where? Oh my god. I wish I could timestamp this or cover this in a better way. Did I not get the beginning of this? I'm just gonna timestamp this out. Did I really? Right here. This is it. Okay, this is it. She's saying we cannot let Jewish people win right here when she signs this. So I tell her that's not the sign for Israel, that's the sign for Jewish. That's very anti-Semitic to say we can't let Jewish people win. And she was like gaslighting me, and I'm deaf, she's hearing. She doesn't know shit about sign language. Okay? Letting y'all know. And she learned it from this person. So this is where I'm telling you, we gatekeep. It's because of access. And it's all connected for me, right? Because I'm deaf and I'm indigenous descent. And so for deaf people, we lived through two genocides because first we have the deaf genocide as, for deaf indigenous descent people, we have two genocides. We are genocided as a deaf people and genocided for being indigenous. And our indigenous signs were forced culturally assimilated into American Sign Language. Um, and so it's very triggering for hearing people to, for me, to see these hearing people basically appropriate my culture in order to be anti-Semitic and discriminate against deaf people and to be anti-indigenous as well, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And then they have the Free Palestine sign in the background. Meanwhile, they're the oppressors and they're not being supportive. And I was sharing, like, so go watch this. I also talk about tokenizing in here, and that's also what I feel applies to Madeline as well, if she's not Palestinian. If she is Palestinian, then I think she should be able to speak on her Palestinian family experience, and it would be very problematic for anyone to question that. But if she's not Palestinian, then she's definitely tokenizing, and it's extremely harmful. Like, because of the genocide and because of how hard it is due to disparity and oppression for people who are indigenous to get access, to get their voices heard, it is problematic even within indigenous communities we gatekeep which Indigenous person is going to speak on behalf of people. And only me, I can only speak to me and my own family history. I don't speak officially for shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, if a reporter were to come to me to want to talk about my family history, that would be no. I'm allowed to share my own interpretation of reality on my social media because it's my own life and I get to process something somewhere. But like, if you want an official reporting on my family history needs to be confirmed by my tribal historian. I can't confirm that. I can't speak on that. That I have to leave to other people in my community who are more qualified to authorize what is going to be officially recognized about us. You know what I'm saying? So there's a big difference between an individual, we get to have our own experience of our lived reality, versus speaking on behalf of the community. The community has to come to a consensus to determine the procedure, and each community is different for how that is done. And so, yeah, and so that's why I think it's so problematic for people who aren't in the community to try and speak for us or over us. And that's why it would very much rub me the wrong way if Madeline weren't actually Palestinian but kept using my Palestinian family to profit off of the genocide. I think that itself speaks to another layer of where she is as a colonizer in her decolonizing journey. She's not decolonizing because she's only building her business off of a colonial constructs, colonial mindsets, and etc., in my opinion. Um, so what I was going to do, the other thing I was going to do today was react to this before the startup thing by Paul Graham. I think I will still fucking do it. Fuck it. I was gonna debate not doing it. I was like, we were already gone so long. Do I really want to do it? But you know what? Fuck it. So, what we're gonna do now is I am rewatching some lectures from Stanford University, and 10 years ago, when I had just been starting out in business, I was watching these while I was just out of college, like trying to get going and everything. Um, and so at the time, like I I hadn't really began my decolonizing journey. Like I knew I wanted to do ethical things in business. I knew I didn't want to be a shitty person. But at that point, I hadn't fully immersed myself into a decolonizing journey or mindset or understanding, like the reality of which things were happening to me in. I didn't have that support and that vernacular even though I experienced certain things, for example, like I didn't know about how to get accommodations, how to have accessibility, things like that. Like, so it wasn't until later in life that I got access. And then 10 years down the road, um, now it's like I'm a whole different person than who I was 10 years ago. And I think that's a good thing. And so I've been rewatching this series because I want to see what I think of it now. Like, is because at the time I had some iffy feelings about it, but now I just want to see did it help me as much as I thought it did. I don't know if that makes sense. All right, let's. Oh yeah, and we're watching this at 2 times speed.
That short. Like long introductions are no good. Sam knows. All right, ready, everybody? I'm not going to ask if the mic is working like in every talk so far. I'll just assume it's working. No, fuck. All right, well, make it work, somebody. It works. All right, this is like some kind of class tradition. All right. I wrote out my talk, and afterwards, in a couple days, I will turn it from a talk into an essay and put it online, so you don't have to take notes. Just listen. All right, so.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Did I mention this is the third lecture called Before the Startup, and it's got Paul Graham speaking, and it's from Stanford University.
One of the advantages of having kids is that when you have to give advice to people, you can ask yourself, what would I tell my own kids? And actually, you find this really focuses you. So even though my kids are little, my 2-year-old
Okay, sorry, I'm pausing again. I noticed the volume was a little loud, so I'm gonna decrease it by about 4 decibels, and we'll see if that helps.
Today, when I asked what he was going to be after 2, said a bat. The correct answer was 3, but a bat is so much more interesting. So even though my kids are little, I already know what I would tell them about startups if they were in college, and so that is what I'm going to tell you. So you're literally getting what I would give my own kids, since most of you are young enough to be my own kids. All right, so startups are very counterintuitive, and I'm not sure exactly why. It could be simply because knowledge about them has not permeated our culture yet. But whatever the reason, this is an area where you cannot trust your intuitions all the time. It's like skiing in that way. Any of you guys learn to ski as adults? You know, when you're skiing, when you first try skiing and you want to slow down, your first impulse is to lean back, just like everything else. But lean back on skis and you fly down the hill out of control. So as I learned, so part of learning to ski is learning to suppress that impulse. Eventually, you get new habits. But in the beginning, there's this list of things you're trying to remember as you start down the hill. You know, like alternate feet, make S turns, do not drag the inside foot, all this stuff. Well, startups are as unnatural as skiing, and there's a similar list of stuff you have to remember for startups. And what I'm going to give you today is the beginning of the list of the counterintuitive stuff you have to remember to like prevent your existing instincts from leading you astray. The first thing on it is the fact I just mentioned that startups are so weird that if you follow your instincts, they will lead you astray. If you remember nothing more than that, when you're about to make a mistake, you may at least pause before making it. When I was running Y Combinator, we used to joke that our function was to tell founders things they would ignore. And it's really true. Batch after batch, the YC partners warn founders about mistakes they are about to make, and the founders ignore them. And they come back a year later and say, I wish we'd listened. But that dude is in their cap table. There's nothing they can do. Why do founders persistently ignore the partner's advice? Well, that's the thing about counterintuitive ideas. They contradict your intuitions. So they seem wrong. So of course your first impulse is to ignore them. And in fact, that is not just the curse of Y Combinator, but to some extent our raison d'etre. You don't need people to give you advice that doesn't surprise you.
So where they're talking about like the founder and the startup capital, that shows me he's coming from the mindset of starting up your business with outside investment, in my opinion, potentially based on his wording. That's how that could be interpreted. And that is something to think about with this whole playlist. You know, I feel like a lot of the advice is applicable in situations in which you're going to be able to get outside funding somehow. Sometimes I don't feel like their advice necessarily could be as applicable to someone who was like me, where we had to quote unquote bootstrap, ain't got no money, like figure that shit out, good luck, you're on your own. You know, some of their advice is like, all right, bitch, I wish. Like, I wish someone would just give me some fucking money. God damn. Anyway, do you want to give me some money? You can go shop at my online store. I'm just kidding. So yeah, fucking.
Right? If founders' existing intuitions gave them the right answers, they wouldn't need us. That's why there are a lot of ski instructors and not many running instructors, right? Like that, you don't see those two words together, running instructor, as much as you see ski instructor. It's because skiing is counterintuitive. So it's sort of what YC is like business ski instructors, except for going up slopes instead of down them. Well, ideally. You can, however, trust your instincts about people. Your life so far hasn't been much like starting a startup, but all the interactions you've had with people are just like the interactions you have with people in the business world. So in fact, one of the big mistakes that founders make is not to trust their intuitions about people enough. They meet someone who seems impressive, but about whom they feel some misgivings. And then later, when things blow up, they say, you know, I knew there was something wrong about that guy, but I ignored it because he seemed so impressive. And there's a specific sub-case in business, especially if you come from an engineering background, as I believe you all do. You think business is supposed to be this sort of slightly distasteful thing. And so when you meet people who seem smart but somehow distasteful, you think, well, okay, this must be normal for business. It's not. Just like pick people the way you would pick people if you were picking friends. This is one of those rare cases where it works to be self-indulgent. Work with people you genuinely like and respect, and that you have known long enough to be sure. Because there's a lot of people who are really good at seeming likable for a while. Just wait till your interests are opposed, and then you'll see. All right. The second counterintuitive point is that, and this might come as a little bit of a disappointment, but what you need to succeed in a startup is not expertise in startups. That makes this class different from most other classes you take. If you take a French class, at the end of it, you will learn how to speak French if you do the work. You may not sound exactly like a French person, but pretty close, right? This class can teach you about startups, but that is not what you need to know. What you need to know to succeed in a startup is not expertise in startups. What you need is expertise in your own users. Mark Zuckerberg did not succeed in Facebook because he was an expert in startups. He succeeded despite being a complete noob at startups. I mean, Facebook was first incorporated as a Florida LLC, right? Even you guys know better than that. He succeeded despite being a complete noob at startups because he understood his users very well. Most of you don't know the mechanics of raising an angel round, right? And if you feel bad about that, don't, because I can tell you Mark Zuckerberg probably doesn't know the mechanics of raising an angel round either. If he was even paying attention when Ron Conway wrote him the big check, he has probably forgotten about it by now. In fact, I worry it's not merely unnecessary for people to learn in detail about the mechanics of starting a startup, but possibly somewhat dangerous, because another of the characteristic mistakes of young founders starting startups is to go through the motions of starting a startup.
And see, I also think it's interesting. He's more focused where he talks about before starting a startup about the angel round, you know. So I guess to him, he believes like having the outside funding. I don't know. Like for me, I would think more about planning, having that long-term investment for what to do to not rely on other people's money. I don't know. Let's just see where he's going. But I just think that's interesting where he's like so focused on the outside investment being his big theme for before the startup. I think that's interesting.
They come up with some plausible sounding idea. They raise funding at a nice valuation. They rent a nice office in Soma, hire a bunch of their friends. And then the next step, after rent a nice office in Soma and hire a bunch of their friends, is gradually realize how completely fucked they are. Because while imitating all the outward forms of starting a startup, they have neglected the one thing that's actually essential, which is to make something people want. By the way, that's the only use of that swear word except for the initial one that was involuntary. And I did check with Sam whether it would be okay. He said he had done it several times. I mean, use the word. We saw this happen so often. No, I mean people going through the motions of starting a startup. That we made up a name for it, playing house. Eventually I realized why it was happening. The reason young founders go through the motions of starting a startup is because that is what they have been trained to do for their whole lives up to this point. Think about what it takes to get into college. Extracurricular activities, check, right? Even in college classes, most of the work you do is as artificial as running laps. And I am not attacking the educational system for being this way, but inevitably the work that you do to learn something is going to have some amount of fakeness to it, and if you measure people's performance, they will inevitably exploit the difference to the degree that what you're measuring is largely an artifact of the fakeness. And I confess that I did this myself in college. In fact, here's a useful tip on getting good grades. I found that in a lot of classes, there might only be 20 or 30 ideas that actually had the right shape to make good exam questions. And so the way I studied for exams in these classes was not to master the material in class, but to try and figure out what the exam questions would be and work out the answers in advance. And like, for me, the test was not like what my answers would be on the exam. For me, the test was which of my exam questions would turn up on the exam, right? So I would get my grade instantly. I would walk into the exam and look at the questions and see how many I got right, essentially. It works in a lot of classes, especially CS classes. I remember automata theory. There's only a few things.
You know, in some ways, though, I feel like I take a test a different way. Like, but when I get there, it does kind of feel the same because I'll be studying everything, but when I'm taking the test, it's like I either know it or I don't. So I just put what the fuck I know, and then if I don't know a question, I don't fill it in until the end, and I'll see if an answer from the rest of the test gives me the answer in that question because sometimes it does. You know what I'm saying? Or I'll like just fucking guess, use context clues, something. Fuck it, I'll just be like, you know what? A. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I feel like so some of biggest criticism I have from this mindset is where I feel like a lot of his things seems to be of an air of where he's used to having that outside investment or not having to worry about what are you gonna do to be sustainable 3 to 6 months out. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so for a lot of people, like say they want to start a business, but they're working as a server, for example, they'll just quit their service job and then they will give themselves 30 days to find enough leads to make rent next month and they're fucked. And then they stress out, they give up, they find another server job and they're just like, I don't know why I can't make it work. But the reality is you need 3 to 6 months to generate enough leads to actually have a sustainable business, depending on the type of business, right? And then like certain brick and mortar, and that's if you don't have to have upfront investment into your business. You know, like if you're more of like a service-based, marketing-based, then you don't have to invest a whole lot to get started, right? Depending. But then, like, if you do have to invest, like if you're a restaurant, some restaurants, they go years without breaking even when they start up. So I think a lot of people, you know, they don't have the capital or the time or the awareness of what that resource management is going to be to start up their business. And so they either don't prepare for it or they give up before they can overcome barriers to entry into the market. Um, and on a certain level, like it's like income disparity, and the whole reason more people aren't in business is because it's a pyramid scheme set up this way, so more people can't be in business, so that way your labor can be exploited, right? But on another level, it's like, okay, well, say somebody has the opportunities but then isn't able to make it work. Why does that commonly not work out? It's typically because, you know, they'll not understand what to do with the resources when they get it. So, for example, a lot of people, when they run ads, they will spend $100 boosting a post to get likes on Instagram. And then they'll be like, I don't know why I didn't make a single sale. I got a bunch of likes. But they don't have an email list. There's nowhere in the ad for people to buy from them. There's no direction. There's no funnel. There's nothing to sell. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of times it's not that people don't have the ability to offer something, or it's not that they don't have good ideas, but they don't know how to make the use of the resources they have to keep going because they never had to do it before because they're fucking starting up. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I think that's where people fail, and then it's hard to get the resources to try again. All right, I'm spiraling. Let's keep going.
Things that make sense to ask about automata theory. So it's not surprising that after being effectively trained for their whole lives to play such games, young founders' first impulse on starting a startup is to figure out what the tricks are for this new game. What are the extracurricular activities of startups? What are the things I have to do? They always want to know. Since apparently the measure of success for a startup is fundraising, another noob mistake, they always want to know what are the tricks for convincing investors. And we have to tell them the best way to convince investors is to start a startup that's actually doing well, meaning growing fast, and then simply tell investors so. So then they ask, okay, what are the tricks for growing fast, right? And this is exacerbated by the existence of this term growth hacks, right? Whenever you hear anybody talk about growth hacks, just mentally translate it in your mind into bullshit. Because what we tell them is the way to make your startup grow is to make something that users really love, right? And then tell them about it. So that's what you have to do. That's growth hacks right there. So many of the conversations the YC partners have with the founder.
So with growth hacks, this was written 10 years ago. I think that's funny because I was a senior growth analyst at a marketing agency before. And the whole concept with growth analysis and full funnel growth and growth hacking isn't actually like it's about managing data. It's about scaling data. It's about managing the entire user acquisition cycle from with the whole user experience cycle from acquisition to sell. You know what I'm saying? And then to customer loyalty. So, for example, with growth hacking, that would be more of like automation of data. It's typically people who you have to have very specific skill sets. Like a lot of them, you have to know how to do coding like SQL, SQL. And you have to know how to manage pivot tables, and you have to know how to organize a large amount of data structures because you'll be, for example, when you're running ads for a t-shirt company, right? Like so I was selling t-shirts. I had t-shirts in black, blue, red, green, yellow. I had 3 designs for each t-shirt. And for each of those t-shirts, there's a different link for them in order to run ads. If you want to retarget someone who is looking at those shirts, you're going to have it set up for all of that to be tracked and then to run those ads, right? So if you run an online store, this is a lot of data management. So the whole concept of growth hacking is automating that for you. So when he's over here like this is a lot of bullshit, that didn't age well. That did not age well. It's like growth hackers are in such high demand. You look for a growth hacking job, they make minimum $100,000 in certain cases. This like, and it's worth it because they make it so much easier because you used to have to go do each of these things manually and it took forever. But a growth hacker who knows how to manage data and do coding right and do all the good shit, like they'll make your life so much fucking easier. Not every company needs a growth hacker. A startup most likely won't need a growth hacker. That's going to be for a bigger e-commerce situation once you've expanded. But to call a growth hacker bullshit is just like, are you fucking kidding me? Okay, I'm sorry.
Begin with the founders saying a sentence that begins with how do I, and the partners answering with a sentence that begins with just, right? Why do they make things so complicated? The reason I realized after years of being puzzled by this is they're looking for the trick. They've been trained to look for the trick. So this is the third counterintuitive thing to remember about startups. Starting a startup is where gaming the system stops working. Gaming the system may continue to work if you go to work for a big company. Depending on how broken the company is, you may be able to succeed by sucking up to the right person, giving the impression of productivity by sending emails late at night, or if you're smart enough, changing the clock on your computer, because who's going to check the headers, right? But I like an audience that I can tell jokes like that to and they laugh. Over in the business school, headers. Okay. God, this thing's being recorded. I just realized that. All right, from now on, we are sticking strictly to the script.
They would not have liked me in that class because I would have raised my hand. I would have been like, so, can you explain why the joke is funny? Just want to know, why is it funny? What's so funny? Just to see. Just to watch him sweat. You know what I'm saying?
All right, but in startups, that does not work. There's no boss to trick. There's no, how can you trick people if there's no one to trick? There's only users. And all users care about is whether your software does what they want, right? They're like sharks. Sharks are like too stupid to fool. You can't like wave a red flag at a shark and fool it. It's like meat or no meat. So you have to have something people want, and you only prosper to the extent that you do. The dangerous thing is, particularly for you guys, the dangerous thing is that faking does work to some extent with investors. If you're really good at knowing what you're talking about, you can fool investors for 1, maybe 2 rounds of funding, but it's not in your interest to. I mean, you're all doing this for equity. You're playing a confidence.
I feel like explains a lot about how unethical business practices get perpetuated, because you get surrounded by people like, yeah, just fake it, fuck it. Okay, whenever on a certain level, I get the whole fake it till you make it concept can be useful as like a pep talk whenever you're like not feeling like you're good enough for something. And it's just like on a certain level, everybody has doubts, and so a lot of people, they just fake it till they make it until, you know what I mean? In terms of like that type of like, just make yourself feel good enough, better thing. I don't know what the fuck am I doing? Like gaslighting yourself into feeling better about yourself type thing. But when it comes to like, just fake it when it comes to business relationships, that really rubs me the wrong way. And that speaks to how I would not want to do business with you. Well, actually, that's weird because it's on this screen, but then when I point, I think my camera is like, it's like whatever, fucking, my bad, sorry.
Trick on yourself. You're wasting your own time because the startup is doomed, and all you're doing is you're just going to waste your time writing it down. So stop looking for the trick. There are tricks in startups, as there are in any domain, but they are an order of magnitude less important than solving the real problem. Someone who knows 0 about fundraising but has made something users really love will have an easier time raising money than someone who knows every trick in the book but has a flat usage graph. Though in a sense, it's bad news that gaming the startup gaming the system stops working now, in the sense that you're deprived of one of your most powerful weapons, and after all, something you've spent 20 years mastering. It is something I find very exciting, that there even exist parts of the world where gaming the system is not how you win. I would have been really excited in college if I had explicitly realized that there are parts of the world where gaming the system matters less than others, and some where it hardly matters at all. But there are, and this is one of the most important things to think about when you're planning your future.
Okay, I guess on a certain level, though, when he does talk about gaming the system, though, I guess there are certain realities, like, while I am against the idea that you should be trying to game the system in business, you know what I'm saying? Because I just don't believe in that, I don't believe in not being a person of my word in that way, Like, but on another level, I do see a point to be made about how in the law and in policies and in procedures and in, how you have to get by with certain types of people. They're just gaming the system. And so you have to learn what game they're playing because they're going to play you. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Okay. How do you win at each type of work, and what do you want to win by doing? So that brings us to our 4th counterintuitive point. Startups are all consuming. If you start a startup, it will take over your life to a degree that you cannot imagine. And if it succeeds, it will take over your life for a long time. For several years at the very least, maybe a decade, maybe the rest of your working life. So there's a real opportunity cost here. It may seem to you that Larry Page has an enviable life, but there are parts of it that are definitely unenviable. The way the world looks to him is that he started running as fast as he could at age 25, and he has not stopped to catch his breath since. Every day, shit happens within the Google empire that only the emperor can deal with, and he, as the emperor, has to deal with it. If he goes on vacation for even a week, a whole backlog of shit accumulates, and he has to bear this uncomplainingly because, number 1, as the company's daddy, he can never show fear or weakness. And number 2, if you're a billionaire, you get 0, actually less than 0 sympathy if you complain about having a difficult life. Which has this
I don't typically like people that want to suck a billionaire's dick, you know what I'm saying?
strange side effect that the difficulty of being a successful startup founder is concealed from almost everyone who's done it. People who win 100 meters in the Olympics, like they walk up to them and they're going like, right? Like Larry Page is doing that too, but you never get to see it. All right, where are we? Y Combinator has now funded several companies that could be called big successes. And in every single case, the founders say,
do you guys notice how this guy seems to spend more time trying to make jokes than actually teach them, or is that just me? Why do I feel like he's trying to just seem more relatable to them instead of focusing on the information? Like, something about it bothers me because every time I'm like, because there's certain type of vibe that I get from him, and it's always like the old white men or the middle-aged white men to older white men who make inappropriate jokes and want to seem relatable to the kids, and I don't know. They just, every time I'm around men like that, they do fucked up shit.
say the same thing. It never gets any easier. The nature of the problems change. So you may be worrying about more glamorous problems like construction delays in your new London offices rather than the broken air conditioner in your studio apartment. But the total volume of worry never decreases. If anything, it increases. Starting a successful startup is similar to having kids in that it's like a button you press that changes your life irrevocably. And while it is, like, honestly the best thing in the world having kids, if you take away one thing from this lecture, remember that. There are a lot of things that are easier to do before you have kids than after, many of which will make you a better parent when you do have kids. And so, in rich countries, most people delay pushing the button for a while.
I thought this damn thing was about how to start a startup. Why the fuck are we talking about how to fucking do kids? Are they like, I mean, well, okay, I'm not seeing the connection. Can someone who's a parent in business explain the connection to having a kid? And is it because like when you have a startup, it's like birthing a baby? Is that it?
And I'm sure you are all intimately familiar with that procedure. Yet, when it comes to starting startups, a lot of people seem to think they're supposed to start them in college. Are you crazy? And what are the universities thinking? They go out of their way to ensure that their students are well supplied with contraceptives, and yet they're starting up entrepreneurship programs and startup incubators left and right. To be fair, the universities have their hand forced here. A lot of incoming students are interested in startups. Universities are at least de facto
Now I see. Now I see. I should have waited.
supposed to prepare you for your career. And so if you're interested in startups, it seems like universities are supposed to teach you about startups. And if they don't, maybe they lose applicants to universities who do claim to do that. So can universities teach you about startups? Well, not. What are we doing here? Yes and no. As I explained, they can teach you about
You know, on a certain level, I think because my university, Loyola, they do try to push you into like an entrepreneur path, basically. On certain levels, I think there are ways in which they could better educate people on the debt aspect and how to be more financially stable. But on another level, the only reason that I'm still doing okay is because of taking advantage of those earlier opportunities I had in college where they were pushing me to focus on the startups. So I don't know, like I guess I can like see how it maybe, if you're really young, you shouldn't be doing it, but like on another level, I'm glad I did personally. It's not for everybody, but I think it was for me.
startups, but this is not what you need to know. Essentially, if you want to learn French, universities can teach you linguistics. That's what this is. This is a linguistics class, right? We're teaching you about how to learn languages, and what you need to know is like how to learn a particular language. What you need to know are the needs of your own users. You can't learn those until you actually start the company. And starting a company, which means that starting a startup is something you can intrinsically only learn by doing it, and you can't do that in college for the reason I just explained, that startups take over your entire life. If you start a startup,
I think on a certain level, anytime you own a business or are a business owner, it can take up your life because you will have to be flexible to be available pretty often, like anytime, because at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to make sure it's done. But on another level, I think like that comes from a corporate pressure where that's how he grew up and was used to working, and so that's what he knows, right? But when you are a business owner, you get to decide what your work life balance is, and you can make it work for you. You can decide, these are going to be my meeting hour and for what I do. So for me, um I am not available all the time during the hours I'm open. Those are just the hours you can book a meeting if I'm available for a meeting. Those are the hours I take meeting requests. You know what I'm saying? That's how I make it work for me. But you can make it work however you need to make it work for you. You know what I mean? There are ways to make it work.
in college, if you start a startup as a student, you can't start a startup as a student, because if you start a startup, you're not a student anymore. You may be nominally a student, but you won't even be that for much longer. So, given this dichotomy, which of the two paths
I still got my degree, and I started my startup freshman year of college, so. Was I not a student anymore then? I don't know. I just personally disagree with this part. But that's just me, like.
should you take? Be a real student and not start a startup, or start a real startup and not be a student? Well, I can answer that one.
And I also don't like this. Like, if you do one or the other, then you're not really doing good enough at the other. Like, what? I think that, like, for me though, I had to work. I had no choice. Like, are you kidding me? You know how many people have to work in college because we have no choice? We don't have someone supporting us? So I don't like this. If just because you work in college doesn't mean you're not a good student. Yeah, your ability to execute and function and perform at a certain level suffers whenever you are working yourself to death, for sure, there's something to be said about not overworking yourself. And if you are doing the hours of college and you're working, that's going to be hard not to do. But at the same time, most people under capitalism, I believe, have to work through college. So to me, that just shows like a different, like what? I don't know. I just disagree with the whole concept of like if you're, like, and it doesn't even matter if you're talking about being a barista versus having a startup. Like I've been doing both. You can do it. It might be difficult, but it can be done.
One for you. I'm talking to my own kids here. Do not start a startup in college. I hope I'm not disappointing anyone. Seriously, honestly.
I don't think you should frivolously start up a startup in college, but don't not start a startup in college just because some silly ass dip fuck says you shouldn't.
Starting a startup could be a component of a good life for a lot of ambitious people, but this is just part of a much bigger problem that you're trying to solve, how to have a good life, right? And though starting a startup could be a good thing to do at some point, 20 is not the optimal time to do it. There are things that, there are things you can do in your early 20s that you cannot do as well before or after, like plunge deeply into projects on a whim that seem like they'll have no payoff, or travel super cheaply with no sense of a deadline. In fact, those are really just isomorphic shapes in different domains. For unambitious people, this sort of thing can be the dreaded failure to launch.
Also, income disparity can impact this shit too.
For the ambitious ones, it's a really valuable sort of exploration. And if you start a startup at 20 and you're sufficiently successful, you will never get to do it. Mark Zuckerberg will never get to bum around a foreign country. If he goes to a foreign country, it's either as a de facto state visit or like he's hiding out incognito at the George V in Paris, right? But he's never going to get to just like backpack around Thailand if that's still what people do.
And that's another thing. It's like if you're like wanting to suck people's dick like Mark Zuckerberg, I'm just like, yeah, we're good. We're good. I'm over here just like, but I'm gonna definitely go get on Facebook right after this. Yes, I do feel hypocritical.
Still backpack around Thailand? Okay, well, that's the first real sign of enthusiasm I've seen from this audience. Should have given this talk in Thailand. All right, he can do things that you can't do, like charter jets to fly him to foreign countries, really big jets. But success has taken a lot of the serendipity out of his life. Facebook is running him as much as he's running Facebook. And while it can be really cool to be in the grip of some project you consider your life's work, there are advantages to serendipity. And among other things, it gives you more options to choose your life's work from. There's not even a trade-off here. You're not sacrificing anything if you forego starting a startup at 20, because you'll be more likely to succeed if you wait. In the unlikely case that you're 20, like astronomically unlikely case that you're 20 and you have some side project that takes off like Facebook did, then you face a choice of either running with it or not, and maybe it's reasonable to run with it. But usually the way startups take off is for the founders to make them take off, and it's gratuitously stupid to do that at 20. So, should you do it at any age? I realize.
I wonder what he means by take off. Does he mean just like financially stable? Does he mean viral? Does he mean like lucrative, you know? I also feel like a lot of people, like when they think of like going into business, they just want to go become billionaires and millionaires. They don't think about, well, what about just being in business, but you're just like living it? You know what I'm saying? Like obviously more income is better, but what I mean is like, they don't think about like what it takes to get from point A to B. You know what I mean? Like if they're not instantly a millionaire, they think they failed, but they don't take the time to enjoy the ride to becoming like successful in business, is what I'm saying, right? And again, I'm not even for capitalism, but since we live under it, we're gonna just discuss trying to succeed in the constructs of the society we live in.
I've made starting a startup sound kind of hard. If I haven't, let me try again. Starting a startup is really hard. What if it's too hard? What if you're not up to this challenge? The answer is the fifth counterintuitive point. You can't tell. Your life so far has given you some idea what your prospects might be if you wanted to become a mathematician or a professional football player. Boy, it's not every audience you could say that to. But unless you have had a very strange life indeed, you have not done much that's like starting a startup. Meaning, starting a startup will change you a lot if it works out. So what you're trying to estimate is not just what you are, but what you could become, and who can do that? Well, not me. For the last 9 years, it was my job to try and guess whether people would guess. I wrote predicted here, and it came out as guess. That's a very informative Freudian slip. Seriously, it's easy to tell how smart people are. In 10 minutes, hit a few tennis balls over the net and
I personally just don't like the term Freudian slip. I really don't. It bugs me. I don't know. Because of the definition and the origin, I just don't even like it. I don't even like how we've colloquialized it. I just think it sucks, and every time I hear it, I just like get a little annoyed for some reason.
they hit them back at you or into the net. But The hard part was, and the most important part was predicting how tough and ambitious they would become. There may be no one at this point who has more experience than me at doing this, and I can tell you how much an expert can know about that. The answer is not much. I learned from experience to keep a completely open mind about which startup in each batch, which startups would turn out to be the stars. The founders sometimes thought they knew. Some arrived feeling confident that they would ace Y Combinator just as they had aced every one of the few easy artificial tests they had faced in life so far. Others arrived wondering what mistake had caused them to be admitted and hoping that no one would discover it. But there is little to no correlation between these attitudes and how things turn out. I've read the same is true in the military, that the swaggering recruits are no more likely to turn out to be really tough than the quiet ones, and probably for the same reason, that the tests are so different from the tests in people's previous lives.
I wonder why, like, okay, something that I wish he was, though, was, like, because I was thinking where he calls it before the startup, like, I'm thinking maybe he's going to give them advice on how they can prepare themselves before starting up on how to start up. But I don't understand where he's going. He's over here like, yeah, don't fucking do it. And then he's over here just like, and if you do it, you're not a good student. And then he's over here just like, am I wrong for this? Like, or am I high? Like, what the fuck is this? And now he's just kind of over here just like, I read about the military. Like, okay, Grandpa, go to bed.
If you're absolutely terrified of starting a startup, you probably shouldn't do it, unless you're one of those people who gets off on doing things you're afraid of. Otherwise, if you're merely unsure of whether you're going to be able to do it, the only way to find out is to try. Just not now. So, if you want to start a startup one day,
He's like, just not now. Okay, I don't think people should give up college to do a startup. I think you should prioritize getting the degree. But I disagree where he's like trying to discourage them. I feel like if someone really wants to do a startup, they're gonna do it with or without your support. And so when you're in a fucking lecture about how to do a startup, why not fucking actually help these bitches who want to do a startup?
what do you do now in college? There are only two things you need initially: an idea and co-founders. And the MO for getting them both is the same, which leads to our sixth and last counterintuitive point.
And you don't really need co-founders to do a startup. You can do a self-startup. Like the fuck. I mean, co-founders are great to have too. Like building a team is great to have too. But like, I don't know. I wish I liked this lecture more, but I like the other two lectures more than I like this third one.
The way to get startup ideas is not to try to think of startup ideas. I've written a whole essay on this, and I'm not going to repeat the whole thing here. But the short version is that if you make a conscious effort to try and think of startup ideas, you will think of ideas that are not only bad, but bad and plausible sounding, meaning you and everybody else will be fooled by them, and you'll waste a lot of time before realizing they're no good. The way to come up with good startup ideas is to take a step back. Instead of trying to make a conscious effort to think of startup ideas, turn your brain into the type that has startup ideas unconsciously. In fact, so unconsciously that you don't even realize at first that they're startup ideas. This is not only possible. Yahoo, Google, Facebook, and Apple all got started this way. None of these companies were even supposed to be companies at first. They were all just side projects. The very best ideas almost have to start as side projects because they're always such outliers that your conscious mind would reject them as ideas for companies. Okay? So how do you turn your mind into the kind that has startup ideas unconsciously? 1, learn a lot about things that matter. 2, work on problems that interest you. 3, with people you like and respect. That third part, incidentally, is how you get co-founders at the same time as the idea. The first time I wrote that paragraph, instead of learn a lot about things that matter, I wrote, become good at some technology. But that prescription, though sufficient, is too narrow. What was special about Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia from Airbnb was not that they were experts in technology, went to art school. They were experts in design, and perhaps even more importantly, they were really good at organizing people and getting projects done. So you don't have to work on technology per se, so long as you work on things that stretch you. What kind of things are those? Now that is very hard to answer in the general case. History is full of examples of young people who were working on problems that no one else at the time thought were important, and in particular, that their parents didn't think they were important. On the other hand, history is even fuller of examples of parents who thought their kids were wasting their time and who were right. So how do you know if you're working on real stuff? I mean, when Twitch TV switched from being Justin.tv to Twitch TV and they were going to broadcast people playing video games, I was like, what? But turned out to be a good business. Well, I know how I know real problems are interesting, and I'm self-indulgent. I'm always interested in working on interesting things, even if no one else cares about them, and I find it very hard to make myself work on boring things, even if they're supposed to be important. My life is full of case after case where I worked on things just because I was interested, and they turned out to be useful later in some worldly way. Y Combinator itself is something
You know, I will say that similar thing happens for me too, where like, I'll end up in places where everything I ever did before led me to where I was then. And even when I spent time doing things where I should have been doing other things, because I did those things, I was more equipped to do this next thing, if that makes sense.
I only did because it seemed interesting. So I seem to have some sort of internal compass that helps me out. But this is for you, not me. I don't know what you have in your heads. Maybe if I think more about it, I could come up with some heuristics for recognizing genuinely interesting ideas. But for now, all I can give you is the hopelessly question-begging advice. Incidentally, this is the actual meaning of the phrase, begging the question. The hopelessly question-begging advice that if you're interested in genuinely interesting problems, gratifying your interest energetically is the best way to prepare yourself for a startup. And for that matter, probably the best way to live. But
You know, this was also from 10 years ago, and we didn't have, there were some of the similar tools with like keyword research and stuff, But the trend reports and things like that, you really couldn't get like as much detail about what public interest about where public interest was going as you can now 10 years later from when this was made. And so now it's just like if you know what you're interested in, you don't even have to worry about waiting to figure out what other people need because you can literally use trend reports and things like that to connect what you're interested in to what people are looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Although I can't explain in the general case what counts as an interesting problem, I can tell you about a large subset of them. If you think of technology as something that's spreading like a sort of fractal stain, every point on the edge that's moving represents an interesting problem. Steam engines, not so much, although maybe, you never know. So one guaranteed way to turn your mind into the type that startup ideas form in unconsciously is to get yourself to the leading edge of some technology, to as Paul Buchheit put it, live in the future. And when you get there, ideas that seem uncannily prescient to other people will seem obvious to you. You may not realize they're startup ideas, but you'll know there's something that ought to exist. For example, back at Harvard, back in the mid-90s, a fellow grad student of my friends Robert and Trevor wrote his own voice over IP software. It wasn't meant to be a startup. He never tried to turn it into one. He just wanted to talk to his girlfriend in Taiwan without paying for long-distance calls. And since he was an expert on networks, it seemed obvious to him that the thing to do was turn the sound into packets and ship them over the internet for free. Why didn't everybody do this? Well, because they weren't good at writing that kind of software. He never did anything with this. He never tried to turn it into a startup, but that is how all the best startups tend to happen. So strangely enough, the optimal thing to do in college if you want to be a successful startup founder is not some sort of new vocational version of college focused on entrepreneurship. It's the classic version of college is education for its own sake. If you want to start a startup, what you should do in college is learn powerful things. And if you have genuine intellectual curiosity, that's what you'll naturally tend to do if you just follow your own inclinations. The component of entrepreneurship, I never quite say that word with a straight face, but really matters is domain expertise. Larry Page is Larry Page because he was an expert on search. And the way he became an expert on search was because he was genuinely interested in it, not because of some ulterior motive. At its best, starting a startup is merely an ulterior motive for curiosity, and you'll do it best if you introduce the ulterior motive at the end of the process. So here is the ultimate advice for young would-be startup founders, reduced to 2 words: just learn. All right, how much time do we have left? 18 minutes.
You know, I will say that this is more of the shit. You know, I was really like hating on him towards the beginning of this, but now this is some of the stuff that I actually agree with here. Like where he's advising people to just keep following their passion and to learn is what I'm kind of getting. That I do agree with because like a lot of people, they will not be focusing on their passion. They'll be focusing on what makes them money. And if they don't have a passion for it, it'll just suck the life out of them, and then they end up quitting anyway. And then they feel like they wasted everything and they didn't get to learn about their passion. Not for everybody, but I've just had that type of conversation with a lot of people before. Some people though, different side of the coin, they didn't do their passion to go make money, and they're way fucking happy. They made a lot of money, and now they're doing their passion. You know what I'm saying? So that can work that way too. Life just turns out different for everybody. You never know. But then for other people, it's just like, if you're always just doing what you love though, then it's like the money will follow. I believe, because if you really love what you do and you have that passion, you build your skill set for it, then people will pay you when they recognize that. I think the hard part is getting recognized for the skills you have sometimes, you know?
18 minutes of questions, good God. Do you guys have questions?
Sure, we'll start with 2 questions online, or we can start with audience Q&A.
You guys are in charge, whatever you want to do.
Okay, so to start with online questions, the most voted question today was,
Do I have to repeat them, by the way? Okay.
how can a non-technical founder most effectively contribute to a startup?
How can a non-technical founder most effectively contribute to a startup? Well, if the startup is working in some domain, if it's not a pure technology startup, but is working in some very specific domain, like if it's Uber, right, and the non-technical founder was an expert in the limo business, then actually the non-technical founder would probably doing most of the work, recruiting drivers and doing whatever else Uber has to do, right? And the technical founder would be just writing the iPhone app, which is probably less, well, iPhone and Android app, which is less than half of it. If it's a purely technology startup, the non-technical founder does sales and brings coffee and cheeseburgers to the programmer. Okay, next. Oh, audience, okay, audience, yes.
Do you see any value in business school for people who want to pursue entrepreneurship?
Do I see any value in...
So what value, I guess?
Well, we probably won't have to get to the second question.
Honestly, I guess they're asking him because they want his specific opinion. But honestly, I don't think you should go ask. I think if you want to ask someone about a particular business school and get someone to pay, and if that's a good school to go to, that's like a good thing to do. But if you want to go to business school, go to business school. Don't go ask other people whether or not you should go. You know what I mean? Because, in my opinion, because but that's just me. But you know what? Maybe I'm wrong for saying that. I don't know. I think business, like I've got my minor in business administration. My major is in music industry studies. And I think studying business in school well, in some way it got me in trouble because I noticed things that I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't had studied to understand what was happening. And so when I call out specific things, people don't like me. So for one of my employers, they were adding people to their email list that did not give them consent to be contacted. And I was telling them this is illegal. And I was citing laws like this is against General Data Protection Regulation. This is against California Consumer Privacy Act. Like, it's extremely unethical. It's not normalizing business. It's against C-spam. It's just, we can't do this. And um, so yeah, and they were just like trying to belittle me. They were just like, well, when you study a little bit more in business, then you will know how to generate leads in an email list. And I was over here, it's just like, yeah, and when you actually read that the whole premise of the General Data Protection Regulation Act is that you have consent to add people to the list, then maybe your bounce rate won't be so fucking high. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. That's just me. I don't know. It's just like whenever we have, but so like I feel like, it can be good to study the business because sometimes if people are telling you not to study business, in my opinion, it's because they don't want you to understand what they're doing, I think. You know what I'm saying? That's just a conspiracy theorist in me.
Which I suppose is the answer to your first question. Okay, so the question is there any value in business school if you're interested in entrepreneurship? And if so, what? So basically, no. I mean, it sounds undiplomatic, but the point, what business school was designed for is to teach people management, right? And management is a problem that you only have in a startup if you're sufficiently successful. So really, what you need to know early on to make a startup successful is developing.
Okay, well, is that what business school is? I mean, I guess you can get different things out of business. I had to take these organizational behavioral management classes in my business program. And it was actually awesome because one of the things that they were teaching us was to learn how to not expect your workers to be able to just work with you the way you work and the way you think because everybody thinks differently. So as a manager, you have to learn how to work with each person in the way that they think. And that's how you can be most productive. That's basically what I was taught in college. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I guess like if you didn't feel like you got that out of your business program, you could be pretty upset. Like that's a pretty good reason to not think it's valid if you're not getting those types of things out of your business program. But I feel like you do get that I got that out of mine, and you can get that out of a business program. Yeah.
Products. You'd be better off going to design school if you want to go to some sort of school. Although, frankly, the way to learn how to do it is just to do it. One of the things I got wrong early on is that I advised people who were interested in starting a startup.
Yeah, I find this hypocritical because earlier he was like, don't do it. And now he's like, the only way to learn is to do it. Like, what? He was like, don't do it, just learn. Only way to learn is to do it. What? Am I wrong for this? Okay.
To go work for some other company for a few years before starting their own. But honestly, the best way to learn how to start a startup is just try and start it. You may not be successful, but you'll learn faster if you just do it. So, not really. Business schools are trying really hard to do this, but honestly, like they were designed to train the officer corps of large companies, right? Which is what business seemed to be back when it was a choice of either the officer corps of large companies or Joe's shoe store. And then there was this new thing, Apple, which started out as small as Joe's shoe store and then like turns into this giant mega company. But they weren't designed for that world. And like let they're good what they're good at. They should just do that and screw this whole entrepreneurship thing just because it's cool. Yes.
You said management is a problem that you have only when you're successful.
Yeah.
So what about those first 2 or 3 people as a founder that you try and manage?
Okay, so management is a problem only if you're successful.
I disagree. I think that management is important before you become successful because your management determines the direction of your success, in my opinion.
About those first 2 or 3 people. Well, ideally, you're successful before you even hire 2 or 3 people, right? Didn't you say, Sam, that Airbnb took 5 months to hire their first employee? So ideally, you don't have even 2 or 3 people for quite a while. When you do, you can sort of. The first hires in a startup are almost like founders. They should be motivated by the same things. They can't be people you have to like manage, right? This is like that. This is not like The Office or something like that. These have to be your peers, really. You shouldn't have to manage them much.
Just a big no-no, like someone has to manage no way that they can be on the founding team.
Well, never say never. I should repeat all these questions. So if someone has to manage, no way they should be on the founding team. In the case where you're doing something where you need some sort of super advanced technical thing, and there's some boffin, if you know that word, who knows this thing and nothing else in the world, including like how to wipe his mouth, then it may be to your advantage to hire said boffin and wipe his mouth for him.
I I really don't like the way he's talking about what would be his employee in this case right here. This rubs me the wrong way. It seems extremely potentially classist, maybe ableist. I don't know. There's just something like that's the type of person I would not want to work for ever. But that's just me. I'm not trying to be rude, but this just.
But as a general rule, you want people who are sort of self-motivated early on. They should be just like founders. Yes, questions? In the far back.
Do you think we're currently in a bubble?
Do I think we're currently in a bubble? Okay, so I'll give you two answers to this question. One, ask me questions that are useful to this audience.
Wait, am I understanding correctly? He was basically like, yeah, sometimes you want people who don't know their ass from their elbow so you can use them as pawns, but sometimes you want people who know what's up. Is that what he just said? Or am I fucked up for thinking that? Like, what?
Audience, because these people are here to learn how to start startups, and I have in my head like more data about that than anybody else. And you're asking me the kind of questions a reporter does because they can't think of anything interesting to ask. But I will answer your question. There is a difference between prices merely being high and a bubble. A bubble is a very specific form of prices being high, where people knowingly pay high prices for something in the hope that they will be able to unload it later on some greater fool, right? And that's what happened in the late 90s. Like VCs knowingly invested in bullshit startups, thinking that they would be able to take those things public and unload them on retail investors before everything blew up. And I was there. I was there for that at the epicenter of it all. And that is not what's happening today. Prices are high, valuations are high, but valuations being high.
Maybe being there at the epicenter for that isn't the thing you really want to brag about. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Why were you at the epicenter of that, sir? Do you want to expand on that more? You want to expand on that more a little bit?
Not mean a bubble. Every commodity has prices that go up and down in some sort of sine wave. Definitely prices are high. And so we tell people, if you raise money, don't think the next time you raise money it's going to be so easy. Who knows? Maybe between now and then the Chinese economy will have exploded and there's another giant disastrous recession. Who knows? Assume the worst. But bubble? No. Yes?
I'm noticing a trend among young people and successful entrepreneurs where they don't want to start one more great company, they want to start like 20. And so you're starting to see the rise of these labs attempts where they're going to try to launch a bunch of stuff. I don't know really stellar examples yet, but
you mean like IDEO?
Like no, like Ideal Lab, like Garrett Camp's new one. There's North.
Oh yeah. Okay, so there's this new thing where people start labs that are supposed to spin off startups. It might work. That's how Twitter started. In fact, I meant Ideal Lab, not IDEO. That was another Freudian slip because Twitter was not Twitter at first. Twitter was the side project.
And now Twitter is X. The fact that he rebranded Twitter just really still pisses me off.
Side project at a company called IDEO that was supposed to be in the podcasting business. And you're like, podcasting business, do those words even grammatically fit together? The answer turned out to be no, as Evan discovered. But like as a side project, they spun off Twitter, and boy, was that the dog wagging tail. So people are starting these things. They're supposed to spin off startups. Will it work? Quite possibly if the right people do it. You can't do it yet, though, because you have to do it with your own money. Yes, far back.
Thanks so much. I hate to step into sort of a gendered pitfall, but what advice do you have for female co-founders as they're pursuing funding?
Female co-founders when you're pursuing funding. Well, it probably is true.
I really don't. Maybe he's going to prove me wrong, but I highly doubt this man is going to give good advice for a woman who are co-founders when he literally started this off making an inappropriate joke about,
That women have a harder time raising money, right? I've noticed this empirically, and Jessica's just about to publish a bunch of interviews with female founders, and a lot of them said that they thought they had a harder time raising money too. You remember I said like the way to raise money, make your startup actually do well? Well, that's just especially true in that case. If you miss the ideal target from the VC's point of view in any respect, the way to solve that problem is make the startup do really well. So in fact, there was a point like a year or two ago when I tweeted this growth graph of this company, and I didn't say who they were.
I love how he's not really giving advice. He's like, the way to solve the problem is to make more money. What, bitch? Huh?
But I knew it would start people asking. And it was actually a female-founded startup that was having trouble raising money, but their growth graph was stupendous. And so I tweeted it, knowing that like all these VCs would start asking me, who's that, right? And like growth graphs have no gender, right? So if they see the growth graph first, let them fall in love with that, right? So do well, which is good advice for startups generally. Yes.
What would you learn in college right now?
What?
What would you learn in college right now?
What would I learn in college? Literary theory? No, just kidding. Let's see. Well, honestly, I think I might try and study physics. That's the thing I feel like I missed. For some reason, like I was all excited. When I was a kid, computers were the thing. Maybe they still are, right? So I sort of got very excited about writing code. And you could do things. You can write real programs in your bedroom. You can't like build real linear accelerators. Maybe you can. So maybe physics. I feel I notice I sort of look longingly at physics. So maybe. But I don't know if that's, what am I saying? I was about to say, I don't know if that's going to be helpful starting a startup. I just told you to follow your own curiosity. So who cares if it's helpful? It'll turn out to be helpful. Questions?
Another question online. What are your recurring systems in your work and personal life that make you efficient?
Boy. Okay, so what are my recurring systems in my work and personal life that make me efficient? Well, having kids is a good way to be efficient because you have no time left. So if you want to get anything done, the amount of done you do per time is high. Actually, many startup founders who have kids have made that point explicitly. It causes you to focus because you have no choice.
For me, for efficiency, like I just realized that I can't do everything. And so I put shit on my calendar, make to-do lists, and if I don't write it down, it might not get done.
Let's see, but I wouldn't actually recommend having kids just to make you more focused. Let's see. You know, I don't think I'm very efficient. I have two ways of getting work done. One is like during Y Combinator, the way I worked on Y Combinator is I was forced to, right? Like there was I had to set the application deadline, and then people would apply, and then there would be all these applications that I had to respond to by a certain time, so I had to read them, and I knew if I read them badly, we would get bad startups, so I tried really hard to read them well, right? So I set up this situation that forced me to work. The other kind of work I do is like writing essays, and I do that involuntarily. I'm like walking down the street, and the essay starts writing itself in my head. And so really, I either force myself to work on less exciting things, or I can't help working on exciting things, and I don't.
Right. Well, for the second, I'm the same way. Like, I could live stream all day. You know, I've done a fucking seminar live stream, you know? But then when it comes to, like, actually working on, like, work, I'll have to, you know, do my coffee, eat my grilled cheese, and then put on some music, set the mood, you know what I'm saying? And then I can make myself work. Like, I have to make myself relax, and then I can be like, okay, I can work. But I have to be careful not to turn on Hulu because, you know, if I see something like Abbott Elementary, I'm just gonna watch that instead. You know what I mean? So you just gotta really manage your time and but then so like if you know there are certain days where it's just like I have this client deadline. There's X amount of time it takes to complete the work I have to do, and I only have this much time left to do it. So that's it. I just sit my ass down and get it done because I make myself do it because I ain't got no other time to do it. But then it's just like other times where it's like, okay, I have a whole nother week until I have to see my client again. I've got plenty of time to get this done. So I'll be like, if I had planned to work today, but I woke up today and I feel like shit, I'm not gonna make myself work on a day I don't feel good. I'll work the next day. You know, and so at different times in your life, in my life, it's been different for me, and I think it would be different, you know, for others too.
I don't have any useful techniques for making myself efficient. Sorry. If you work on things you like, you don't have to force yourself to be efficient. Yes?
Is it a time to turn a side project into a startup?
When is a good time to turn a side project into a startup? You will know, right? It starts.
I would turn your side project into a startup. If somebody's trying to buy shit from you, that's a good sign when people are already trying to offer to buy things. Or B, it's like if you've never done any marketing for it before, um, and you know, and you're thinking about it and you want to, and you have the desire, then it could be a good idea to try, you know?
So the question is, when you turn a startup into a side project into a real startup, you will know that it's becoming a real startup when it takes over an alarming percentage of your life, right? Like when you find, like, my God, I just spent all day working on this thing that's supposed to be a side project. I'm going to bail on my classes. What am I going to do, right? Then maybe it's turning into a startup. Yes. Wait, I already answered your question. I should let somebody else ask. I may get back to you. Yes.
Well, now I'm realizing with side project, do they mean side gig though? Because by project, I don't know if they mean hobby or paid project. I guess that's misleading, huh? Well, if they're thinking hobby, my original statement stands. If it's like already paid, obviously that doesn't make sense. They're already making money in that context. Whatever, fuck it. Semantics. You know what I mean.
I know you talked a lot earlier about you'll know when your startup is doing extremely well, but I feel like in a lot of cases, there's a bit of a gray line where it's like, you have some users, but maybe not. It's explosive growth, chart isn't up to the right. What would you do, or what would you recommend doing in those situations, considering you're allocating time and resources? How do you balance and
okay, when a startup is sort of growing but not much,
That's when I would automate personally. And that's when, at that point, when you run ads, you basically, like, that's a good time to be running ads is when you are, you know, are just starting to grow, but you don't have the resources to put everywhere. That's when you can just slowly start automating. But the first thing you want to automate is your revenue, which is your ad. You set up an evergreen funnel, and then you have consistent sales when you get that going. That's what I would do, personally.
didn't you tell them they were supposed to redo things that don't scale? Yeah. You, sir, have not done the readings. You are busted, therefore. Because I wrote a whole essay in answer to that question, and that is it. Do things that don't scale. So just go read that. Because I can't remember everything I said. About exactly that problem. Yes.
Is he saying do things that don't scale? But weren't they asking how to scale? Am I not processing? I don't know. All right, let's just watch it. I don't think I'm processing. Maybe I got what they meant wrong.
Back there.
What kind of startup should not go through incubation, in your opinion?
What kind of, do you mean incubation LYC?
No, yeah, YC or
What kind of startup should not go through YC? Definitely any that will fail. Or if you'll succeed, but you're an intolerable person, that also Sam would probably.
I don't understand, like, what was the funny joke about anything that will fail? Like, what? honestly, like sometimes I feel like we can laugh about our failures, it's healthy to do that. But on another level, I feel like the way society laughs at failure is why people get ashamed to not try new things. I don't know. That's just
Probably sooner do without. Short of that, I cannot think of any because a large percentage, and founders are often surprised by how large a percentage of the problems that startups have are the same, regardless of what type of thing they're working on. And those tend to be the kind of problems that YC helps with the most, not the ones that are domain specific. So can you think of a class of startups that YC wouldn't work for? I can't. I mean, we had like fission and fusion startups in the last batch, or they had. Yes.
You mentioned that it's good advice to learn a lot about something that matters.
Yeah.
Some good strategies to figure out what matters.
Well, if you think of, okay, so how do you figure out what matters? If you think of technology as something that's spreading as a sort of fractal stain, anything on the edge represents an interesting idea. Sounds familiar. So how do you figure out, like I said, that was the problem. You have correctly identified the thing where I didn't really answer the question, where I gave this question begging answer. I said, like, I'm interested in interesting things. If you're interested in interesting things, work on them and things will all work out, right? But how do you tell what is a real problem? I don't know. That's like important enough to write a whole essay about, and I don't know the answer. I probably should write.
I love how they don't know what is a real problem. Are you fucking kidding me? It's super easy to identify what the fuck a real problem is. Okay, well, if we're speaking on human rights issues, we could talk about oppression, we could talk about genocide, we can talk about land back, we can talk about discrimination. And it's super easy to see why this white fucking man wouldn't know what the fuck a real problem is. Anyway, but if we're talking about in business, how will you know what a real problem is with your business? Your employees and your customers will tell you what the real problems are, and you will know what a problem is. So what the fuck do you mean, what is a real problem? Everything can be tracked. So, for example, say you want to understand if, say your customer tells you your website's not working. You can then go check Google Search Console. It's going to tell you where is your website broken, which page, where are people having issues at. Then you can go fix that shit, for example. Like it's like I don't understand like this part of it. For some reason it's just making me grumpy. Like
Something about that. I don't know. I figured out a technique for detecting whether you have a taste for genuinely interesting problems, which is whether you find working on boring things intolerable, right? And there are known boring things, like literary theory and working in middle management in some large company. So if you can tolerate those things, then you must either have stupendous self-discipline.
oh, are they talking about a problem to profit off of in order to create an offer to then sell to have a startup? I think when people do that, they're not typically good business owners. Like when people get in business just to own a business, not because they actually care about the business, then they're typically like just unethical and shitty and they're just like, you know what I mean? In my opinion. But like, I feel like you should go into business because you have the passion for the thing. And then you can use trends to solve people's problems in relation to that passion, if that makes sense.
Or you don't have a taste for genuinely interesting problems, and vice versa. Yes. Okay, one more question. It better be good.
I was wondering how Snapchat makes money plans to do something.
Snapchat? What do I know about Snapchat? We didn't fund them. Can I have another question? All right, go ahead.
Because you talked about hiring people you like, but it seems like that could lead to monoculture. There are a lot of benefits to monoculture, but how do you deal with the blind spots that arise?
Okay, so if you hire people you like, you might get a monoculture. And how do you deal with the blind spots that arise? Starting a startup is something where many things will be going wrong. You can't expect it to be perfect. And the advantages of hiring people that you know and like are far greater than the small disadvantages of having some monoculture. You look at it empirically, all the most successful startups, someone just like hires all their pals out of college. All right, you guys, thank you.
Oh shit, I just realized I was muted. My bad. Have I been muted this whole time? That sucks. Was I muted for telling you guys to go shop at Monkey Monkey and the go shop? Monkey Monkey is my sister's coffee shop. Ink by Cass is a tattoo artist who's my client and my friend. Um, and so they're in Houston, Texas. I apologize. I don't know how long I was muted. Basically, I just said that we're going to be concluding, recapping, wrapping up now. And where we had started was with the Casze Instagram DM situation. It was basically the same as what she texted me, just slightly different because she also added YouTube, I believe. But I believe otherwise it was the same, pretty much. But I did some further reactions to that. If you want to go check that out, it's here. And so in my initial reaction, I showed where certain things weren't true in terms of showing what I said, where she said what I said, and then where I showed what I said. Um, and then in this live stream, I looked into the laws that she was citing or whatever, or claiming that I broke. But I don't think I did, according to what the laws say. So, I don't know. Fucking, yeah. And then we just checked out some of the damage control on her Instagram and how, like, basically, I don't think this is going to impact her business long term anyway. I don't know. So, it doesn't, like, it's just, at the end of the day, I think that, what she and Madeline Pendleton have in common is they're successful enough, they have enough loyalty and following to where even though they have these other people who don't like them, they're still going to be fine. You know what I mean? Because they're going to maintain their loyal engagement. And then there's also a whole pocket of people who don't even know about this situations in which they have controversy, and so, no, you know what I mean, they still have like that untapped market too. um and with Madeline Pendleton today, we just talked about her connection to Indigenous people and whether or not she was actually had Indigenous ancestry or whether or not she was tokenizing Indigenous people. We discussed that, and then we discussed, like, basically from some of the issues I had where I felt like she wasn't addressing some of the points um, that she could have been because she doesn't have the perspective to address them. And I also felt like a lot of what she says could be pretty hypocritical, in my opinion. And so we've been doing some commentary on that and addressing some social issues I have with her political beliefs as well. Um, and in the ongoing Madeline playlist too. And then last but not least, we did the third video reaction on the How to Start a Startup playlist for the Before the Startup lecture by Paul Graham. And all of this is linked in the description of the video. I need to go through and make sure I link some of the legal shit from the Casze situation that I pulled up. I don't think I linked the Casze Instagram either. I'll do that too. I'm gonna just link the Instagram page itself instead of each video URL that I pulled up, because I don't really remember which ones I clicked, and maybe I'll remember. But yeah, so I'm adding the Casze Instagram link up in here. And so yeah, so we talked about a lot today. I feel like my mind is crashing, Like, in some ways I think I'm happy that I did the live stream because I feel like processing what I processed when I processed it is part of my own healing journey in terms of reflecting on value alignment in business, as well as how commerce is connected to genocide, I think all of this is good processing. And that also comes back to capitalism, in my opinion, is a form of structural genocide. So I really am against, people going after other people who with businesses. Like I feel like on certain levels, with certain people who do certain things, I don't feel certain people should be in certain positions because I feel they have the ability to be harmful in the positions they are in based on certain situations, right? And so there are cases in which I will argue somebody should not have a specific job. But overall, I am against the concept of trying to go after someone's ability to make a living just because you don't fucking like them. I think, unless if you have like an actual reason, perhaps for example tied to human rights issues, right? There are times where there's a good reason and way, in my opinion, like because of the result and the consequences of it being so um problematic and so harmful and so difficult. I think when we make that choice, it's got to be for very good reason. I don't think it should be frivolously, and I don't think it should be over social media commentary in a fucking wedding dress. Like, are you kidding me? um so, you know what I'm saying? So I'm against like anybody sending any form of death threats or going after anybody or blah blah blah. So, if Kaze shows me who is saying some of those problematic things, like they will not be welcome in my circle. I don't tolerate a certain level of things like that. You know what I mean? Like, so, and that's literally why I hold my comments for review on my YouTube page, because I want to moderate my space and I don't allow certain types of people to put certain type of rhetoric in my space, and I don't want the algorithm to get to people like them. So, you know what I mean? Like I heavily moderate my spaces, and like I never encourage anybody like to go after. I've actually had in a different, entirely different situation, people were like, "Oh, well, I sent this one person sent a bunch of her friends to go after me." And I actually did a video about it called like the Cass Sinclair Retaliates Against Me one. I'll link it after, fuck it. Um, but yeah, fucking in that one, in part of the discussion, they were like, well, like, because I actually had people who were like, "You want me to go tell them something?" And I said, "No, let's stay out of it. I'm gonna keep my business, my business. You," because they were dealing with other things, and I was like, "No, you got other shit to deal with." Like, and so I'm like, my community, we've got so many other problems that I really don't try to bring my community into my drama with people or my fights or arguments with people unless there's a damn good reason. Um, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I did that with every fucking argument, we'd be here all day. Nobody has time for that. Um, and so fucking like, and it's just unethical. It's just dogpiling. It's like if I have an issue with you, you and I can talk that out. And so like, I kept my issue with this one individual person. She brought all of these other people in to come after me. And then part of what they were saying to me was, "Oh, well, you don't have other people who will come fight for you and blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "No, I'm just not sending other people after you because I can fight my own fucking battles, bitch." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. There's just like a certain level though. It's just like I think it's so funny that so first I'm getting told that, like nobody will come fight for me. And now I'm being told I'm the reason. But I don't feel like I've sent anybody ever. I've told people never to do this type of shit. Like, so, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, ugh. But anyway, that's just me though. And I really do think it's interesting that, like, when you got, like, basically about 25 million views on a story, but I only have, like about 1,000 total at the time of this video. Like, like, you know what I mean? Let's do some, where's my calculator at? Why the fuck does this keep, anyway, hold up. So that's 25,000 times more engagement than what I got. You know what I'm saying? So wouldn't you think that most of the, you know what I mean? Like, what is 1,000 out of 25 million? That is 0.00004%. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna just pull up the whiteboard one time before we go. Real quick, just so we can get a visual on this. So, this is the same as last time. Here we go. So, about 20,500,000, right? And so 1,000 out of about 20 million, 20, oh, I said 25 million. Okay, hold on. Let's get this right. My bad. I was doing that off of memory. It's not 25 million. It's 20,500,000. My bad. Okay. So, let's do, how do I do a pen? Hold up. Here we go. Okay, so 1,000 divided by 20,500,000 equals 0.0000. Sorry, this looks like shit. I'm drawing with my mouse. 48780. I know this doesn't look like it. This is supposed to be a 0. Okay, so I sent 0.0, like, yeah. Like, this doesn't even, like, you know what I mean? Like, literally 0%. 0% of the engagement. It's not even possible for my viewers to make up 0% of her engagement. Just, I didn't even spell engagement right here. There should be like, oops, whatever. Life is hard. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm saying? I feel like I am not making sense, but I don't even know. So she's trying to basically say that, like, I'm causing harm to her business because 1,000 people saw my commentary about her. However, most of, at least 294 of the views, so about 300 out of the 1,000. So 300 out of 1,000, you know, that's 30%. So 30% of the commentary was of the views was my commentary entirely on Caze's side. 100% on Caze was 30% of the views from me. You know what I'm saying? And then the next couple of videos after that weren't necessarily against Caze, because I still believe that the dress could have been stolen, and the other clients and the employee side didn't initially come out. So my next couple of videos are still relatively on the pro Caze side. Like, I really did, like, you know what I mean? And the closest that it really came to talking bad about her wasn't really talking bad about her. It was reacting to the stories from employees and clients, and me discussing how I didn't like what occurred in their stories. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't about this necessarily um, shitting all over Caze. It was just about discussing value alignment in these specific business transactions. Now, mind you, I'm not perfect. I've had a DUI. I've been arrested. Once it was arrested for aggravated assault and simple battery, but it got dropped to disturbing the peace. And then I was arrested another time for disturbing the peace. Like, I'm not perfect. I've got, I mean, I don't know. Like, my thing is, I don't give a fuck, though, about hiding the shit wrong with me. So it often gets used against me in some ways, but in other ways, it can't get used against me because I already fucking told you. You know what I mean? Um, so, like, yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense, but the reason I bring that up is like I don't think I'm some perfect person. Like I'm, somebody who is mixed descent, you know, and so I have a lot of issues where I'm still processing my role in these social issues, because I come from a problematic background. On one side, I come from people who have been genocided, and on the other side, I come from people who did the genociding. You know what I'm saying? So I often feel like different parts of me are conflicting. Um, so it's hard. It's hard to understand what your role is in society. And I know I'm shitting on Madeline a lot, but like really, I only intend to be shitting on the specific ideas and vernacular in which I am reacting to. I'm not necessarily trying to make judgments about who these people are overall. I don't know these people. I can only tell you how what the content that I'm reacting to makes me feel or process or think, you know? But at the same time, I feel like I'm someone who should be criticized and critiqued, you know? So definitely don't think I'm someone to put on a pedestal. Don't put anybody on a pedestal. I just am here to discuss what I'm processing in my value alignment in social issues and where are where are certain stories um making me feel certain issues processed for me relating to my own lived experience. You know what I'm saying? And so the whole reason like that I even like so I first started covering the whole Caze situation because I that first video I really did believe the dress was stolen. And I covered that shit because I was like, how the fuck would you do that to somebody, to a designer? And so, but then didn't like all of these other things were coming out, and this other narrative, like I was covering, like I wasn't gonna just accuse someone of thief too without like at least saying, okay, like let's wait for the evidence, see, because Kaze didn't share evidence initially. Although I did initially believe her, I was still ready to cover anything that came out about it because I wasn't going to not cover another side after sharing one side in this case for me. Um, the other side, though, didn't meet what I needed to see for it to think it wasn't theft. Like I wanted to see that she either tried to get the dress back, um, or like that she paid in full. And neither of those things happened, so I still maintained my argument that I thought it was stolen. I just also documented the other things that are being discussed about the Kaze situation in regards to the employees and the other clients. And I do believe that all of the evidence that they present is true, So, but that's just me. You're welcome to your own opinions. With the whole Madeline situation, I think she's particularly triggering me right now as it relates to my own family history. So if I sound particularly aggressive sometimes when it comes to things she says and does, is it that particularly triggers my own family history. Um, yeah, and then when it comes to the how to start a startup reaction, like that guy, there are certain things he said. I was like, this is some of the things were good advice. I was just like, yeah, like, learn like where to focus your attention on your passion and learning. When he was talking about that, I really liked it. But a lot of the other things he said really just fucking annoyed me. Um, I felt like he wasn't actually supporting people who were looking for advice on how to do a startup. I felt like he was just discouraging them. And I think a certain level of discouragement can be good in terms of you have to really want to own a business to really succeed. And so a certain litmus test of maybe this isn't for you can be good, so that way for the people who are really determined they will shine through. So on a certain level I can see that, or to warn people about how hard it will be, I get, but to totally discourage people, that I didn't like. And then, but I thought it was funny when he slipped up, like where he was saying, don't do a startup, just learn, because you won't be a good student if you do a startup. But then he was saying you can't learn to do a startup in school. You have to learn by doing. So you have to go start a startup. I thought that was funny because there he ended up kind of like those are two contradictory statements to me. But for me, as someone who actually did this, the answer that bridges that middle gap there is you can do both. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great night. And yeah, bye. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at nola-chow.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.